Okay, thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Fran Baxter, and I'm the chairperson of the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals. Today is January 26th, 2021, and I am calling our meeting to order. Before we do our business, I do want to remind everyone that this open meeting of the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in publicly accessible location. All members of the Zoning Board of Appeals are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the ZBA to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to the Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Okay, well, thank you, everyone, and good evening. It is past the hour of 6 o'clock, so we are going to start with to consider the petition of Salim Tanreverdi for the appeal of the determination of Robert J. Federico, CBO, Inspector, Building, Zoning Enforcement Office, that the repair of motor vehicles is not allowed at the property located at 34 Hamilton Road, map 100, parcel 37 in Residential C zoning district. And if I can ask the host if they can tell me if the applicant is in our audience.
Yes, they are, and I just moved them over to panelist.
Okay, and I'm going to just ask if the applicant can pronounce his last name for me and then just identify themselves, pronouncing their last name and giving their address.
Hi, my name is Salim Tanreverdi of 34 Hamilton Road.
Tanreverdi?
That's right.
Okay, I just want to thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Tanreverdi, you are here requesting an appeal of a decision that was rendered by our zoning enforcement officer relating to automobile repairs in your driveway. If you wanted to give us some information about what you believe is your position, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So an introduction, my name is Salim. I went to 34 Hamilton in the 7th grade. I've had Mr. Strickland, who's my neighbor at 37 Hamilton, as a mentor for a long time. I grew up learning to work on stuff with my hands, working on cars once in a while, getting heavily involved in the robotics team locally. I'm really thankful for that kind of experience because now I have quite a rewarding engineering career at Amazon, where I do spend 5 out of 7 days a week traveling for work. So most of the time I'm not even home to do car stuff. And since the agenda says that we're discussing whether the repair of motor vehicles are allowed, I noted that the section 705.020 that Robert Federico mentioned in his letter states an establishment where the principal services the repair of such and such. If principal is defined as like first in order of importance and service is the action of helping or doing work for someone, I don't believe it applies to working on your own car registered to yourself at your own house where, you know, it's a residence. Mm-hmm. I do see in one of the photos, there's a rear of the vehicle not bearing plates. That one's been registered continuously since 2015. And its tag is 1LX295. It's mentioned in the 1023 police report. I borrowed the license plate screws to put it on my RV trailer because I was in a rush and excited to get out. I put the plates back on, and again, it's mentioned in the police report. It's been registered for many years. And by the way, it is complete. It is fit for use. It's not dismantled, so it could even be unregistered without being in violation. There's a claim that states that I'm selling vehicles and making a business out of it. But 940 Code of Mass Regulations, Chapter 37, Section 5.01 states, a person shall be deemed to be in the business of selling motor vehicles if he or she sells more than 3 motor vehicles in any calendar year. I'm pretty sure I've sold 5 vehicles in the 11 years that I've had a driver's license, which is like the equivalent of getting a 24-month lease. Mr. Frederico's stated that I have unregistered vehicles multiple times, and there's been no evidence to suggest that other than the police coming and verifying that everything is registered to me. I think Mrs. Cotillo, my adjacent neighbor, makes a case for obscene amount of noise every day. That's in the 926 incident report. On that day, I actually had to call Northborough Police to defuse the situation of her being like verbally loud and harassing me and insulting my mental health. But even when I spent 2 months away from Northborough, like I spent most of this year living at an RV park in Western Mass and the rest of it traveling for work. I returned on the night of 10/22, October 22nd. And the very next day, I like unhooked my car from my trailer and I jacked up the side to take some measurements. And Ms. Cotillo called the police for noise complaints. And the police arrived. They didn't observe any tools out. I wasn't making any noise. I was literally taking measurements, which I forwarded to a fabrication shop in Shrewsbury. I paid $2,000 for him to do the work in like a really overcompensating effort to comply and have no chance to say that like, you know, I'm in violation of a cease and desist and whatever. So like both the police report agree that I'm not in violation in terms of noise or that there's anything unregistered.
Okay. Can I ask you currently at this moment, what is the vehicle situation at your property?
What I put in the application, there's 4 vehicles. 3 of them are registered to me. My dad drives one of them daily. I drive one of them daily. The Subaru my mom drives daily. And there's one other car that was like a car that's really rare and I want to keep.
Okay.
That's what's currently in the driveway. And
Okay.
that's
Okay.
been the situation for most of the year.
Okay. And you don't have a garage on the property?
I don't.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So before I open up to questions from the board, I'd like to ask our zoning enforcement officer, what is the status of the situation from, I know that there was a cease and desist and it was removed after going out to see the property. Can you tell us what the status is of the situation right now?
I did not drive by it today, but what I can give you is somewhat of a timeline. I have to apologize because I don't have the actual enforcement letters in front of me for the dates, but I can give you a ballpark.
Okay.
Spring into summer, I received a fairly substantial amount of complaints from the neighbors, the Cotillos, and I assembled their complaints over a period of time, and I took some rides by 34 Hamilton a few times, and I took some photographs from the car that I was driving in. And based upon what I saw, it was fairly evident that, from my standpoint, that, there was some zoning bylaws being broken. I sent an enforcement letter to Salim, and I think there was some correspondence in long mid-story. Things seemed to calm down quite a bit and things look pretty cleaned up. So I sent out a letter about a week later, rescinding my enforcement order because it seemed like things were calming down. The place was looking good. There was no further complaints. Excuse me. About a couple of weeks later, I got another batch of photographs and sound movies and things like that. And I decided to reinstate the order. I do want to state that when I sent the notice of rescission out, I reserved my right to drop the rescission and enforce the zoning code as I see fit. So that's what I wound up doing. Due to COVID and Salim traveling and things like that, there was a bunch of delays in terms of getting the appeal in and complete and everything else. But that's taken probably a couple of 3 months. But nonetheless, here we are tonight in January. One of the things that I do is I take a look at the complaints and I investigate them. And if I see that they are legitimate, I have to do something about it. This is based upon my opinion, based upon what I saw versus what's in the zoning code. And my opinion is that there was an issue going on.
Okay, I'm
That-
sorry. Can I
Yeah.
just ask to clarify
Yeah.
by issue? I
Yeah.
mean, currently, is it in your opinion that Mr. Tanreverdi is operating an auto repair or auto body business?
No, because one of the things that deals with that is unregistered vehicles and things like that. So they all registered to him. So he's not doing it for somebody else. And, so in terms of the business, that is something that, is no longer relevant to my enforcement order.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So if you were to pinpoint within our zoning bylaws what the violation is that you believe that, in your opinion, still exists relating to the appeal of that, because that's
Mhm.
what we have on the interpretation request form is
Mhm.
that is a violation, that's an auto repair or auto body in a residential area, which is not allowed.
Basically, it would come down to prohibited uses under 705.010G, which is prohibitive uses. In all zoning districts, no use shall be permitted, which would be offensive because of injurious noise, vibration, smoke, gas, fumes, flame, odors, dust, debris, that sort of thing, or other objectionable features.
Okay.
I took a look by in terms of a visual. You've got a lot of nice houses, well kept in that neighborhood, and then you come across one where there's occasionally you see a bunch of cars in pieces up on blocks and jacks and things like that. That's inconsistent with the flavor and character of the neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. All right. So, Mr. Tanreverdi, since you've heard that, did you want to speak specifically to that as part of your appeal?
Yeah, I think that taking pictures on one day, which is like literally Labor Day weekend, which is a great time to get out and do some projects, doesn't really accurately reflect the state of every other day out of the year. Like, I don't have a garage, so I have to clean everything up and put everything away at the end of the day. Otherwise, like the dew drops, everything rusts, it rains. I don't have a garage, so I can't work at night. I can't make noise outside of reasonable hours during the day. And like 99% of the time, you'll see like 4 cars parked in front of a house. I don't want to be breaking my knuckles every day on my own cars every day. I'm not home every day to do it. Like it's literally just a hobby. Like it's literally like a stereotypical American pastime, like, working on your car. What I really don't want to have happen is like when I go to change my snow tires in the spring and I jack up the side of my car, Miss Cotillo calls the police and says like, see, he's still working on his cars. Well, like, yeah, I want to be able to work on my cars and I don't want to be a nuisance. And like, I've annually read and reread the Northborough zoning bylaws, like just to make sure I'm doing what I got to do to respect the shared space, right? And the vast majority of the time, it's the case. I think one day there's been some pictures taken where like there's a couple car doors open and one car being worked on. It didn't seem like a big deal to me.
All right, thank you. All right, so I want to open it up to the board members for questions for either the zoning enforcement officer or the appellant. Paul?
Yeah, just a quick question for Bob. So is there currently a cease and desist as of today for?
That was in my second order. That is a cease and desist. So that currently is still on my books, as it were. And that is what is the basis of appeal from Mr. Tanreverdi.
Okay.
Other board members?
Uh,
Mark?
Madam Chair. Bob, have other neighbors complained or has it all been from the one neighbor?
To this point, from what I can understand, it's been one neighbor. I have asked her if they have other neighbors who would like to join in on the complaint, I would recommend that they do so. Just so that the other neighbors, if they do have objections, this would be an opportunity for them to, to voice their opinion. Likewise, I've told Salim that if he has friends and neighbors who support what he's doing, by all means, bring them forward. This is, I'll have to admit, kind of a gray area in terms of zoning. I don't think anybody's opposed to a shade tree mechanic. I think in this particular case, it's a matter of the degree to which he's enjoying his hobby. When I hear complaints about visuals and noise, then I feel that I need to do something about it, at least in the form of a letter. So to answer your question, I've only had one set of complaints or one source for complaints.
Okay.
And that's your answer.
Bob, can you say what is the extent of the cease and desist? If, for example, if he was to change his snow tires into regular tires, would that be an infraction?
No,
Okay.
like I said before, I mean, I do the same thing in my own yard. I'm not a car guy, but I do have winter tires and snow tires. And in the spring and fall, I jack up the car, I switch out the tires, and I have an impact wrench to use it. And for about 20 minutes or a half hour, it sounds like the pits of the Indy 500. I've got no problem with that, changing your oil, doing your brakes. The question, from my standpoint, is when you're working on 3 and 4 cars, and some of them are disabled for a period of time, while some aren't. I think that's the question, and how much of it disturbs the neighborhood.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Other board members and/or alternates? Oh, Brad.
Madam Chair, so early on, the applicant, Mr. Tanraverdi, I hope I said that correctly, mentioned you have 4 vehicles on the premises right now. 3 are registered. Can you tell me a little bit more about the 4th vehicle, please?
All 4 are registered. They've been registered for many years, like between all 4 of them, over 12 years. 3 have been renewed twice, and another one's being renewed in May. I did have 2 others that I sold on request of Miss Cotillo. Like they're kind of like rare colors and trims that I found over the years. And like I did it just so there would be less cars, it'd be less, like less to look at. And like now I'm without the cars and I'm answering for like running a chop shop or something, which I'm not doing.
Yeah, and to follow that up too, I know you haven't been on the premises too often recently. Could you give me an estimate on when you think you work on these vehicles? Days of the week, hours during the day, please?
Like that, obviously during daylight hours. Like I think maybe like a night or 2, I might have like done something quiet with like a headlamp on, right? But I would say like definitely like the summer is the best time, nice and warm, and like usually the weekends. I do have a job where I travel full time. Like I set up the robotics in the Amazon warehouses. I'm on a plane. I'm out somewhere in North America Monday through Friday, almost every week. So it's really like maybe like 10 weekends a year that I'm like out there doing heavy work. And that's probably why it seems offensive, right? It's like I'm doing a lot at once, like on a weekend, the next weekend, but then like the majority of the year, I'm not doing anything. Like I'm actually in Vermont right now. I haven't been home since like November for more than I think a week or 2. I did go home recently. I like replaced the ball joints on one of my cars. It's kind of like a maintenance item. I didn't make much noise. No one complained.
Okay, thank you.
Other board members?
Yeah,
Paul.
Madam Chair, Bob, do you have a copy of the? I mean, so this is essentially just an appeal, right, of Bob's enforcement,
Mm-hmm.
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah. So did you send? Do you have a copy of is there? What was the basis, or what is the conclusion that you are looking for from the applicant that he needs to get to? Is it just the registering of the cars?
No, the registering of the cars was settled earlier on in this whole event. Basically, it was stop the offensive noise, clean up the yard, basically make it not look quite so offensive.
Okay. So, I mean, it sounds like that's, I mean, I don't want to speak for the applicant, but it sounds like that's kind of what he's trying to get towards, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, not to put words in Mr. Tanaverti's in his mouth. But I think it's again, it's a matter of degree about what is tolerable out at Hamilton and what is not. I can appreciate him traveling for work, not being home too often. And when he does come home, he kind of, well, maybe wants to make up for lost time and enjoy his hobby. I think everybody has a right to that. But the question is, again, it's a matter of degree and what's the level of tolerance for the neighborhood.
So, Madam Chair,
Yeah, Jeff.
so Bob, you said you didn't get by there today. The last time
Yeah.
you were by there,
Yeah.
how long ago was that, and what was the status when you last saw it?
It was probably a couple of weeks ago. There were no cars that were apart. Everything seemed to have plates on it. So it looked kind of like a normal driveway with cars in it. Not a big deal.
So based on what you saw, that would have been satisfied to what
Yes.
the order that you were looking for. Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
And we don't have any zoning bylaw that says you can't have car parts or flower pots or gardening tools in abundance in the public view that other people may find unsightly.
There is one. It's earlier in the chapter, earlier in the book. Let me dig out the book real quick.
The question is if it's the noise and it's intermittent, or is it the
Well, I'm not, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm not sure what section of the zoning, but we did have the one with the farm equipment up on
Green Street,
Green Street.
right?
Yeah.
Those were unregistered, dismantled.
Yeah.
And I mean, our zoning says unregistered vehicles which are unfit for use or permanently disabled.
Uh,
So the fact that these are registered and the police
And
department
drivable.
has confirmed that the vehicles, at least the vehicle that is currently in the driveway, which doesn't look like it would run, is a registered vehicle, it is allowed to be there.
Right. And again, but if you go down to the next paragraph,
Mhm.
Section G, prohibited uses, it talks about zoning districts.
Mhm.
No use is allowed because of noise,
Noise.
vibration,
Mhm.
smoke, gas fumes, dust, debris,
Glare.
natural calamity, that whole thing.
Right.
So
But
it's,
It doesn't say just unsightliness. I mean, there's nothing that says that. I mean, we're not,
well, it talks about objectionable features.
okay, and other objectionable features. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, so it's,
okay.
again, it goes to the flavor of the neighborhood and the
Mhm.
tolerance to which, Tan Reverdy carries out his hobby.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you, Bob. Other members of the board? Mr.
I have a
Tanaverdi,
question.
oh,
Madam
I'm sorry,
Chair?
Dick, yes.
Yeah, how long are these cars left in disrepair in the yard? Are you taking engines out? Is it going on for weeks and weeks of the same vehicle up on jacks? Or you doing your work on a weekend and getting it completed and, getting the car back on four wheels in the driveway?
Yeah, like there's three licensed drivers for vehicles. So like we daily drive three of them. So like I have to get to work, I have to get to the airport, mom and dad have to get to work. So at least for three of them, I can't take it down for more than a weekend or a week. Sometimes you got to wait for parts. Like, I think I did one long project, which is like what the 9/6 incident was. I literally I wrapped everything up. I'm like idling it. It's like Saturday of Labor Day weekend, I think. Like I'm making sure the sensors are good before I go for a test drive and wrap everything up, which by the way is like specifically protected in the zoning bylaws. Like if it has, I think it's like just talking about like it has like factory exhaust, right? And then like I left that weekend. So for the most part, like nothing stays apart for a long period of time. Like I do a project, I wrap it up, I leave. In fact, like it makes it really difficult. There's like no parts strewn across the yard. I got a lot of friends that are like, like couple vehicle carcasses here and there, axle here, engine there, whatever. Like there's no such thing, and there's never such thing. I think in the one of the pictures in the letter, there's like some interior parts that I took out of the car, and it's like I take it out, I work with it, I put it back. I have a shed out back, I can store stuff. There's nothing like for an extended period of time that's like objectionable outside. Maybe like Saturday night into Sunday, I might leave something outside because it's a pain to clean up just for the night. That's about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any others? Oh,
From
sure,
Madam Chair.
Leslie.
Yeah, so I'm curious about the police reports. Do the police reports and the support Mr. Chen Riveri's story or the neighbor's story, I guess, since the police have come?
I'll chime in on this one. When I did not see the license plates on the cars, I asked the police, could they check it out? Because that's not a zoning jurisdiction to see if a car is properly registered as the police. And they did, and they ran the plates, and they found that all of the plates are legitimate and all the cars are legitimate. That put an end to the unregistered vehicle portion of the argument. Okay, so I leave it to the police to do their job and their due diligence to come up with a finding on whether a car is properly registered. And their finding was that yes, they're all okay.
What about the noise complaints?
The police don't really do noise complaints unless it's something akin to a riot or something like that. They're hesitant. A lot of times, and I think this may be a very poignant case, is that what this may be is just a difference between two neighbors, which would typically be a civil case. I get that type of complaint fairly often, and most of the time the complaint is a civil complaint where no town authorities, no town boards, no town action is required. It's strictly something to be handled from one neighbor to the other. I'm guessing that this is probably turning out to be something like that.
We don't have a noise ordinance in the town, and the only thing within the zoning we have is this prohibited use about the noxious noise, but we don't have
Right.
anything specific.
That's right. There is no threshold for noise in a residential neighborhood. In terms of the cars being, running with their engines, as long as they have the appropriate mufflers and sound deadening equipment on it, that's fine. We don't have a ordinance for leaf blowers, lawn mowers, snowmobiles, snow blowers, go-karts. None of that stuff is regulated by the town zoning code.
Thank you, Bob. Okay.
Madam Chair, one more
Brad.
question.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it looks like you're doing, I mean, these cars are all registered and you're doing a lot of work with them. Are they still, have they passed inspection in the last 12 months? Or is this just a hobby that, you're just fixing the cars up and just driving around the neighborhood? I know you mentioned your parents and are using the car, but it seems like you're doing a lot of work on them. Are they still fit for drivability on the road?
Yeah, I mean, one of them I drove all the way up to Vermont here. There's one car that's like, yeah, it doesn't have bumpers, it's lifted, but I don't drive it. And like the reason it's registered is like, it's 99% together. Like, and the reason it's registered is I've always like made an effort to be like, all right, if it says the things about unregistered vehicles, like I'm never going to do it. Like, I'm never going to put myself in a situation where like I'm violating some bylaw, right? Like they are inspected, they're registered. I've owned them for many years. Like there isn't even one car that I've owned for less than 1 year, right? Like if I was like flipping cars, if I was working on them all the time, they'd be like in and out. They'd be cars worth a lot more money. Like these things are Kelly Blue Book, $500. There's no way I could flip these things. And also like the police reports. So the 9/6 incident where I actually called the police. Like I literally couldn't be outside. Like I was being like taunted by Miss Cotillo. It's so the report is from Officer McDonald, and it says, I advised them that it was not too late for a noise ordinance violation. I think it was like 5 p.m. in the middle of the summer. I wrapped up at like 6 p.m. I think, and like I was done with my project at that point, which is when I, shipped off to Western Mass and didn't come back for almost 2 months. And like the tool that I would use most frequently is like the impact driver Mr. Federico is mentioning, which is like, helps you break lug nuts and tight bolts loose. It's a short duration. Like it's not louder than a lawnmower. It's not that pleasant, but like it's not injuring anybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul,
Yep. So I guess there's a question for the applicant. Like, it sounds like you're just trying to comply to Bob's cease and desist order and not actually trying to run an auto body or auto mechanic type of shop, right? Is that
Absolutely not. Like, okay. Full disclosure, I make almost 150 grand at Amazon. I have no interest of running a shop with Crown Vics worth $500. Like, it's just a hobby.
Right. I guess the thing that it just seems like, Bob sends out a cease and desist and says, you need to stop doing this stuff. You reply and say, here is my evidence. Right. And now Bob needs to sort of check and make sure and do his due diligence on it. And then if everything checks out, then Bob would, like he did last year, rescind sort of the cease and desist. Is that correct, Bob? If everything checks out that you say he shouldn't be doing that.
Right. I mean, it's the glory of the appeals process is that if I answer a complaint and I send an order, there's always an appeal to the order. And, in this case, a board of 5 or 7 is better than 1. And if you as a board deem that what Mr. Tanroverdi is doing is okay, I'm perfectly okay with that. And whatever the board votes to do, I'll be happy to comply, whether it's write a letter of rescission or just let the matter drop as it is. Or if you want him to, if you want to, agree with my order, you can, maybe attach conditions to it. I don't know. This is, I hate to say it, but I'm putting this in your lap because 5 heads are better than 1.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and it seems like asking for an appeal for an auto body and auto repair and auto body to be able to do sort of that level of work, which is what it sounds like far and away more than what the applicant is doing or asking for, seems a bit excessive. But if he complies with your cease and desist by having the plates on, abiding by the noise complaints, it doesn't seem like it's just the proper process, right? I mean, if all he's trying to do is just be able to do work on his car, then he should just respond to you to say, hey, I've all of these issues, I've answered all these issues. Here is my evidence.
Right. Some of the earlier points that I had brought up, running a business on registered vehicles, those 2 were settled fairly easily on because when the police went and did their due diligence, they checked the registrations and they checked the ownership and everything was fine. So there was no evidence of him doing any of this work for other people for money. And they were all registered and typically minus an inspection sticker, roadworthy. So again, the zoning bylaw talks about registered and not whether or not it has an inspection sticker on it. Even at that, if you have a rejected sticker, you're still allowed to drive your vehicle for a certain amount of time.
Okay, and then just my last question, this is for the applicant. Is there anything in in Bob's zoning enforcement letter that you don't agree with or that you think is, or, sort of the basis for this appeal?
Yeah, like I don't see any concern to like groundwater. One of the cars I built for an event, it's called Gambler 500. It's like this no rules, no race GPS rally. In the last 3 years, it's kind of turned into like literally the world's biggest trail cleanup. It's like impractical vehicles on trails. You just go out and pick up trash with your friends, hit some rally points, take pictures, win imaginary points. I don't have any like concern about flammable or hazardous materials, which is mentioned. Like the fire department hasn't reached out. I think the only thing I find is like no one should store more than 50,000 gallons of oil. It's just like not applicable. Like, I think going forward would be helpful is like, okay, I run a Facebook page called Crown Victoria Go-Karts, and people like chop them down and because they're so cheap and make like this crazy looking, super lightweight, fast thing. Like, I haven't done that because I don't want to make a whole bucket loads of noise and have this weird, ugly creature of a vehicle outside. So like, I want to be able to continue working on my stuff. I want to do it during daylight hours without making unconscionable amounts of noise, but like, I want to be able to use an impact wrench to break nuts loose. Like, I'm very careful. I'm very clean. At the end of almost every single day, the whole house is clean. Like,
right. But I guess, so was there anything specifically about any of the conditions that Bob had originally sent in the cease and desist that is a concern for you?
Let me take a
because
quick look.
if it's just a matter of you trying to meet all these concerns and then putting it into an appeal.
Yeah, I think I can find his original document if I can. I'm hoping that he mailed it to me. Maybe he didn't, but I think there was things about like, no loud noise should be emitted. It's like, that's kind of subjective. Like, you use an impact wrench, it's kind of loud for a little bit of time. It's not like all day long it's loud. I think it's kind of one thing to say you can't work on more than one vehicle because like there's no bylaw that says that you can't do that. And then I don't have the actual like rescinded letter that he sent me in front of me, but like if you have it on hand, that would be really helpful because I only have like the original letters that you sent.
I believe I sent, I think, a total of 3 letters on paper. One was the original enforcement order. The second one was the letter of rescission. And the third one was the reinstatement of the zoning enforcement order. And basically the letter of rescission stated something to the effect that, since the first order has been written, I've taken a ride by it several times during the past week and noticed that everything is actually in pretty good shape. And I'm hereby rescinding the order. But I do reserve, the town reserves the right to reinstate it if the situation, reverts back to what I originally saw.
Right. So
that was the main content of the rescission letter.
I found that letter. It's actually in the reinstatement email you sent me. So it says like vehicles to be registered, no problem. No storage of parts and junk. I already don't do that, but that's also not a violation. There's no business conducted, no problem. No interest in that. Mm-hmm. Vehicle sales, yep, they're in accordance. I've never sold more than 3 in a calendar year. Chemicals, oils, fuels shall be limited to that of normal household amounts. So yeah, if you have 4 cars, takes 5 quarts each. It's not unreasonable to have like 3 or 4 gallons of motor oil in your shed. No loud noises, I think, is the one that's a little bit subjective in art. Like, I do want to be able to use like an impact wrench, which most people would use to work on a car. Like, I don't want to make bucket loads of noise. And I think like one day I might have done that. I cut a hole in the side to stick an intake pipe out of, which is like surprisingly allowed. It's like a snorkel for going underwater with the car. So I think it's just that noise one. It's like, I'm not looking to make buckets of noise, but I do want to be able to use like tools you buy at Home Depot.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. So before we open it up, because this is a public hearing, just to be clear, there are 3 adults in the house, all of whom have a car that they come and go with that is registered, insured, and licensed, just like everybody else in this panel. And you take the time, you work on those cars as well as your project car on any given weekend or time frame. It is possible for you to be changing the oil in your mom's car the same weekend you're putting new brakes on the car that's on blocks. Or I don't know if it's on blocks, but.
Yeah, that's exactly what I
Okay.
did, I think 2 weeks ago when I drove down.
Oh, okay. All right, Brad.
Final question. So I think Paul had mentioned groundwater. While you're working on these vehicles, what are you doing with the leftover oil, gas, lubricants, additional fluids, radiator fluids, et cetera, et cetera? What are you doing with these fluids?
So in Massachusetts, it's actually legally mandated for a retailer who sells automotive fluids to accept the reclaimed fluid back. This doesn't apply to coolant, but then that you got to pay to recycle, which sucks. But like I've had to do that once, and it's pretty simple. Like Harbor Freight gives you a free tarp and a 20% coupon when you go there. I lay down a free tarp, drain whatever I'm going to drain, put it in the bottle, bring it back.
And where is this center, recycling center?
It's been I think it's been like 5 years since I've had to do that, but it was like Sutton, I think. I haven't had to do that in a while. It's just been like oil changes and stuff. And that's like, Walmart AutoZone. Like you just bring it back, you give them the receipt for the old one, and they take it back.
There is a recycling or exception facility in Sutton called New England Disposal Technologies.
Yeah.
And they take virtually everything except for maybe latex paint. So yeah, there's,
Okay.
NEGT.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a public hearing, so we will open it up to the public for comments on there. If they have questions or concerns about the appeal of the zoning enforcement officer's decision. I'm going to ask each person as they're brought in to state their name and address, and I'm going to ask that you keep your remarks to approximately 3 minutes so that we can get to everyone who may want to speak. I see somebody with their hand up, and the last name is Cotillo. I'm going to try unmuting you, but I think, oh, there it is. Oh, I think our host did it for me. Okay, Mr. or Mrs. Cotillo, you are now just need to unmute your phone and state your name and address, and the floor is then yours. Can you hear us? Okay, I see the Cotillos. I see the speaker. Does every?
Yes. Hello.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay, and who's on the line?
My name is Jeannie Cotillo. I live at 38 Hamilton Road.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Cotillo.
We have had this problem for going on 4+ years now with the, I wouldn't even call it repairs. I guess it's vehicle modifications that Salim does. I don't know if you had the chance to look at the videos that we had submitted of what is happening. And Salim, this summer, there was no way he was traveling 5 to 7 days a week. He was there each and every day, morning, noon, and night, with vehicles, several vehicles jacked up at one time, in violation of Bob's cease and desist. Bob had given 2 cease and desist. As soon as Bob leaves the property or does whatever he, does, Salim goes right back to violating, driving through the backyard within 10 feet of our house, to the point where, if my husband's on his sit-down mower, I'm afraid he's going to get, run over in our backyard. The vehicles are left on makeshift jacks, including stacked tires, that it's not safe. He has flammable liquids left constantly in the yard, dismantled vehicles. There's an engine that's there right now covered in a tarp that's been there for months. The vehicle that is roadworthy usually has 2 front flat tires, no front bumper, no back bumper. The noise starts at 8 a.m. and it goes well into the night. I've sent videos of the noise from inside of our house. I don't know if you've had the chance to listen to it, but if you could put yourself in our shoes, we can't open our windows. We can't work outside in our yard. The day that I did speak to him, I finally reached a breaking point after 4 years of asking for it to stop. His father had told us initially that they didn't like the work either. We attached the emails and that it was coming to a close soon. As I said, he has 3 to 4 cars dismantled on any given day, all over the front yard, all over the driveway, which is within 20 feet of our house that we take great care in. For a lot of what he does, he wears like a gas chamber mask, which makes me think he's doing things that are pretty toxic, including spray painting the vehicles. we just spent a good deal of money having our house re-sided and painted. And, it's just not fair that his hobby gets to impede on our property. My daughter has been woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning with the car noises, and to the point where we have not wanted to involve the other neighbors because just the proximity of our house to theirs is we take the brunt of it. We take the brunt of the mess, the smell, and the noise. And I will assure you that none of you would want to be living next door to it. It's just beyond, it's not as if somebody is working on their car. I mean, we have neighbors, you go out, you change your oil, you fix your tires, whatever. This is all day, every day. And it is beyond what is reasonable for a neighborhood. And we've seen people come and purchase cars from him as well.
Okay, all right. Thank you,
Madam
Ms.
Chair,
Cotillo.
that's-
Okay. Okay, I'm going to ask, so then there's another person whose hand is up. Their name is Alex, and Alex, I'm going to allow you to talk. I apologize if I do this wrong, but I think I did it right. If you could unmute yourself and give us your full name and address, please.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Alex Leduc. I actually live in New Hampshire, but I am a friend of Salim's. I actually had similar issues with neighbors making false complaints against me. I met Salim through Crown Victoria Group, and throughout the years, we've done stuff together as far as car stuff. We're in car groups, but it seems to me if you don't have brand new vehicles, somebody will find something to complain about because you don't take your vehicles to a shop and have somebody else work on them. As far as zoning issues, has any sound ever been measured with a calibrated decibel meter? And what would be the threshold that constitutes unreasonable noise? If it's only one person complaining, that seems kind of odd to me. And I don't know, unsightly, that is subjective as well. Like that goes back to not having brand new vehicles. People, for some reason, find offense to that and end up complaining about it. But I've seen his property. It's a nice house. Obviously, his parents wouldn't want him destroying it. I've never seen fluids or anything on the ground. The house across the street had a dumpster in the driveway for quite a while. There was always noise from that. They're redoing the house or whatever. It seems odd that when they're using sawzalls, nail guns, and air tools that make noise, nobody has complained about that. But when Salim is doing it, it's a problem. But again, that comes back to what is considered too loud.
Okay.
But
Right,
other
thank you,
than
Mr. Leduc.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. I see that, let me just make sure, is there anyone, I see that the Cotillos have their hand raised. I just want to make sure that there is no one that has not yet spoken. Oh, there we go. All right, so I'm going to start with, allow to talk. I believe it's Brian Young. Is that correct?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Your
It's
name and
pronounced
address,
Young.
please.
Thank you. Yeah, my address is 2757 Rivendell Road. I actually live on the other side of the country here in Lake Oswego, Oregon. I went to college with Salim. I'm another engineer myself, and I work for Intel Corporation. Yeah, I admit it. I'm also a car guy too. I have been called out by one of my neighbors as I was accidentally working late into an evening, and I'd like to believe that stuff like that happens. It also is a bit subjective. I've had another neighbor who, well, they had an RV parked on the road, and it was a mess with, you guys have all probably seen the news and the homeless problems. I don't need to go into that, but all the times I've been over to Salim's house, it's been nothing but kept up. Lawn's clean, bushes are trimmed, and well, there may be a few cars. To Alex's point, sorry if they're not new. Not everyone can afford or chooses to afford a brand new car every other year. Well, I may work from Amazon. There's nothing against living a frugal lifestyle, last I checked. I also tried to do it with my project car. I try to be good with the neighbors, and if there's any issues, we've always been able to work it out.
Okay.
In fact, I usually help them work on their stuff when they need minor things done.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Young. Before I ask the next person whose hands are up, I need to ask our host. We got a question in the queue asking how do people on the telephone, I guess either raise their hand or acknowledge that they want to speak.
Absolutely. I just saw that and I was going to answer that right after
Okay.
Brian was done speaking. So I believe you just dial *9 and *9 will allow the raise your hand feature to go up. I believe there is also another way, but *9 should work.
Okay.
So if you want to go ahead and try that.
All right. While they are trying that, I'm going to have Dan Strickland allow him or her to speak. If you can unmute.
Yes, I believe I did.
Thank you.
I'm actually Bonnie Strickland. My husband is here as well. We're 37 Hamilton Road, and we're directly across from the Cotillos and diagonally from Salim. And the way it works, I can't really see Salim's driveway out my window because of the trees and the way our house is situated. So I can't comment on what it looks like. Usually when I drive by, I've seen him working on cars. I have not seen car parts laying around other than what was needed for the current repair. But not having daily access, I can't comment on what goes on regularly. But I also want to say that my husband does work on our cars and has spent the past 3 summers building an addition onto our house. So he makes noise as well. And I have to say that most likely the noise coming across diagonally across the street does not impact us as much as the Cotillo house being directly on there, right next to them. And then my own husband making noise. I very rarely hear Salim. I do hear the impact wrench occasionally. I can hear the beep, beep, and I know what he's doing. But other than that, I can't say that we hear too much noise, but the way the houses are situated, it's easy to understand that with a tree in the way, and we have no windows on that side of our house.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Strickland. Okay, so there is a phone number that starts 774 that has asked to speak. I'm going to allow you to speak if you can give your name and address, please.
Did I do good?
So that's 774. And the last 3 digits are 899. If you can unmute your phone and then identify yourself and your address, please. Just give them a second. The person on the phone who asked to speak, last 3 digits are 899. Oh, not sure. Okay, I'm going to, well, I'm not exactly sure, so I'm going to ask the host. I don't want to bring in more than one person, but I do have someone else that is asking to speak, so I will try Allison and Christopher Tumola. If you can unmute and state your address, please.
Hi there, 17 Hamilton Road in here, Northborough.
And the last name, I'm
sorry?
Allison Tumala.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to highlight that we live around the corner from them. So while we can't speak to the specific day to day, we do drive by their house and have even walked down the road, and we see the work, but not to the extent that has been highlighted. So, and it's not a noise. We don't hear noises. We don't see smells or any of that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to try this.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I looked it up. I believe once you give them permission to talk, if they dial *6, I believe that unmutes their phone if they
Okay.
can hear us. So *9 is to raise your hand, and *6 is to unmute your phone.
Okay. All right. So let's give that 774 number another opportunity. Okay, 774, last three digits, 899. Jim, if you could just repeat that, just so that they can hear it again.
Absolutely. So I believe it's *6 to unmute your phone, and then *9 to raise your hand.
So at this point, you just need to *6 to unmute, because I've already brought you over. Okay. All right. All right. I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize, but I'm going to move them back. And oh, I don't want to remove because I don't know what that's going to do. Okay, I'm going back to the Cotillos. I apologize for that. If this is still Mrs. Cotillo, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Speaking to that point, I know that the neighbors across the way are working full time where I'm here, and my husband has been here more due to the pandemic and working from home. And Allison is probably 5 houses down on the right. And the problem, as I said, if Dan Strickland is working on his car, he may come out, change his oil, do something, clean it up at the end of the day. But I can't express enough to you how this is nonstop. And I think any of you put in the same position would not like to be living next to an auto body shop. We did not purchase a house next to a Jiffy Lube, yet we are, have the smells, the sounds, and the sights of living next to an auto body shop. And he has gas cans that stay out there morning, noon, and night with kids around. And as I said, the cars jacked up look like they're held up with a pile of tires. It's certainly not safe. He has stuff dripping in the driveway constantly, and he has auto parts littering the front of the house, the back of the house, because he's in and out because whatever things he's getting, he has in the back of his house. We've had at night his father open up the big patio umbrella and hold it to block what he's doing so that we can't see what he's doing at night. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know if you're able to hear the noises of the tools that are being used, but I mean, we cannot even keep our house windows open. This is not ordinary repair of a vehicle in your home. This is constant and extensive. And Mr. Federico said he couldn't have more than 1 car on jacks. He has 3 cars on jacks. As soon as, and he's not getting fined. He's, I don't understand these people calling in from across the country who aren't living here day in and day out. We have been in our home for, 27 years. We have had no problems with anyone. And I've had, even going on walks, people say to me, oh, we feel so bad for you. You live next to, quote unquote, that house that is always a mess with the cars in the driveway. I've had people say it to me constantly, but I'm not the type that I'm going to go up and down the street and get other people involved in my problem. I didn't want to incite that. I didn't want to turn other people against them, but we are the ones mostly impacted. I mean, Dan's doing an addition in the back of his house. He probably wouldn't even hear the noise, and they certainly don't have to look at it right outside their window every single day. And I don't think anyone on this board would want to live that way.
All right. Thank you again, Ms. Cotillo. Okay, I now see that there is a Mr. Tanreverdi. I'm going to allow, I brought you in. If you could unmute and state
Hi.
your name and address, please.
Hi, Kahraman Tanreverdi, 34 Hamilton. I'm father of Selim. Mrs. Cotillo said many times that every single day, while she was emphasizing it, he's not home for probably 40 days out of 2 days. Only 2 days he was home 2 weeks ago. So it's not true. I should definitely say it. I was not planning to speak, but it is not true. Not every day. He's doing sometimes 2 days in a row, sometimes 3 days in a row, but he's not always making noise. I would be just stop him. That's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. Can I say?
Yes, go ahead.
My across the neighbor, what was their number? A Kurdi. He has a car shop. He has a repair shop in Worcester. And he wants to speak. I was writing his phone number. He wants to speak, but he's joining over the phone. He couldn't do it.
Okay.
He said that. He texted me. So Selim bring his car to him for big repairs and big items that Selim doesn't do in the driveway. So he changed Selim's car's transmission. He changed the exhaust manifold. So basically, he repairs the big item. Selim doesn't do everything home. He can't, and he doesn't want to. He's working on a hobby car, as he expressed, not a repair. That's it.
Okay.
You
Thank
can confirm by calling Abe Kurdi. He's on the call right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mark. Rattan.
Yes, Bob, I was wondering on your visits, have you noticed parts on the front lawn or the back lawn?
Earlier in August, I did notice parts on the front lawn or in the driveway. They were near the front of the house. They weren't strewn about, like a junkyard where people are just casting them aside. The piles were fairly neat and orderly, but it appeared to be some cardboard boxes. I'm guessing they were probably items and parts that were shipped in and had been received. So, there have been parts throughout the time. The worst I can remember is back in probably August, which is probably about the time Selim came home and was home for a while. But yeah, I mean, I've seen it there. When I sent a letter of rescission, everything seemed to be cleaned up and there was no evidence of any of that stuff going on. Haven't been by again. You see something like sitting out on the front bench or something like that, but nothing outrageous and nothing that I would consider to be offensive.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Bob, if I could just follow up. To the appellant. Is there any natural border between the property at 34 Hamilton and the Cotillos? Any fencing or trees or bushes?
So we actually did end up putting, what are the tall pine things called? I don't remember. But after all the, arborvitae, exactly. We did actually end up putting those just to be like, here's the line in the sand. I've driven my car out back, just to make a special consideration of not storing parts all over the place. I have a shed out back. So I put everything in there. It's all enclosed. It looks neat. And every year I take whatever brake rotors from previous jobs or whatever it is, I take it out to the scrapyard. So I'll drive my car into the backyard to do to load up a bunch of stuff. That's not a violation, right? And I really want to make a comment to the noise every day thing. There's a police report that I called in on September 6th, and she's complaining about, obscene amounts of noise every day. During that visit, Ms. Cotillo said to the officer, what do I have to do? Call you every 5 minutes if there's noise? And he said, you can do that, right? And then she did do that. 2 months later, she did call and say, when it was Officer Murphy that arrived, I was bent over, I was measuring the bushings, and I actually, like I said, I sent that to a shop in Shrewsbury. I paid $2,000 for him to fabricate it to make sure there's no way I'm in violation during the cease and desist, right? I literally had measuring calipers and I was making engineering drawings. When the officer arrived, he says he was not using any tools upon my arrival. It's the day that I got home. So it's if it's every day, how come you don't have a whole bunch of police reports of me making noise and proof and evidence? You can take a video, but it doesn't show how loud it is. You can make any video seem as loud as you want.
Okay. All right. So to keep to what we have in front of us, from what I can see, is that we have a bylaw that says that no permitted uses that have cause of are offensive because of noxious noise or other objectionable features. Now, that's a very gray area because what one person finds objectionable another does not. However, I think that we can agree that in residential areas in the suburbs, there are certain things that are accepted. So, is fencing or additional shed and or garage within the calculation to reduce some of the concerns of the neighbor?
I've tried to, we actually do have like an unfinished foundation from the previous owner, but like it's in the worst spot possible. The house is like situated in the worst way possible. I couldn't like put a garage with the setbacks that exist. So I've never even like approached that idea.
Okay.
And also, like, to be honest, like I'm pretty sure my family's going to be moving to Nashville in a year or two. It's like not worth the investment for like
Okay.
a hobby on this much stuff.
Okay, thank you. All right. This is okay. I do see Mr. Tan Reverdy. Your hand is still raised, so I just brought you back. I don't know if you had something additional to say.
No, just it was an accident. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to be sure. Okay. All right. So any other board members have any questions or concerns? Okay, I'm going to. Yes, Paul.
So Bob, has the applicant reached out in the last month or two to try to satisfy the last letter? Or like have either you or them made the effort to sort of say, hey, I got your last letter, here's what I've done in response to that? Because I mean, because ultimately it seems like there's a difference of opinion and a lot of gray area here. And I think the solution could be potentially that, you know, maybe we don't make a decision tonight on this, right? And allow the applicant to meet all of the standards within the cease and desist order, right? And then, you know, we can move forward. And if there are future complaints, then, you know, there are future complaints, because whichever way we decide, if we were to make a decision tonight, I don't think it's going to be satisfactory to either party.
Right.
But ultimately, the end goal that we all want is, you know, for bylaws to generally be followed and, you know, for things to progress, right?
Right.
Madam Chair, I don't mean to speak out of turn, but like, I guess like,
I don't know what additional, I don't know what
do
additional.
we try to allow the applicant to satisfy the cease and desist, at least for till the next meeting?
Right.
And then maybe come back with more information?
But I think what I'm hearing is the issues of unregistered vehicles. It's not an auto body shop. It doesn't meet our definition for auto body, auto repair, or used car sales. So the only outstanding issue is whether we interpret the bylaw in the same way as the building inspector did, as to prohibited uses shall not be permitted, which are offensive because of noxious noise and other objectionable features. So I'm not sure that unless, I mean, Bob's already determined that he does violate that, and now is asking us to either affirm that or disagree with that. The other pieces, I think, have been resolved. And Bob is shaking his head yes, but for those who can't see him, I think that's an affirmative.
If I may, Madam Chair, to Paul's point regarding, you know, maybe not taking a vote tonight, that's the will of the board. But in terms of giving Salim a chance to see what we can do to come up with an agreement and kind of do this without a vote, my impression is that We tried that earlier this year when I issued the order, and then I rescinded it based upon the improvements I saw on the property. So that's been tried once, and, you know, I agree with Paul in that, you know, if there is a vote, you know, somebody's going to be very upset tonight. The you know, the question is that this debate has kind of gone on long enough. It's been almost 6 months. Granted, we've had delays due to COVID and Mr. Ten Riverdi's travel schedule, and that's understandable. But you know, I think one of the reasons why it's in front of the board is hopefully to get some sort of maybe a definitive answer.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Okay.
Madam
right.
Chair, you do have now two hands.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to Ms. Cotillo first. You can unmute.
Hi,
Thank you.
I was just wondering if you all had the photographs that we had submitted and the video?
Yes.
Okay, so have all the board members seen the video of the car with the oil pan and the gas cans and everything?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that stays like that that's not just a one day. As you could see, there was nobody working there that day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're looking at every day.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Mr. Strickland. Or
Hi,
Miss.
Yeah, this is Mr. Strickland. This is Dan Strickland of 37 Hamilton Road.
Mm-hmm.
I was just at a question. If you decide to upheld the cease and desist to work on vehicles, are you going to come up with all the guidelines to remove the gray area around how much noise is too much noise, what is unsightly and what isn't unsightly, what is noxious fumes and what isn't? Because I am concerned about, again, you know, the amount, again, this type of gray area, because it becomes unenforceable because of the fact that, you know, it's really an opinion over one person not really understanding what someone else's, or can't appreciate someone else's hobby, or that, because again, I do things that make a lot of noise, and I'm concerned that if if I offend someone, that I may be asked not to do that anymore. And I'm just wondering again if there's going to be guidelines set for if you in fact, you know, do keep this order in place.
And yeah, the answer is yes. If we were to disagree with the building inspector's interpretation, we could just say we disagree, or we could disagree and then put conditions on the allowed use, I think. Oh, Bob.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think what Mr. Strickland may have been talking about is there a way to quantitate any kind of a complaint versus noise or something like that? And if that is what he's going for, I'll just say this. The zoning code is written in many ways to be flexible so that in certain situations, things can be either allowed or disallowed based upon the vote of a board. You know, if we were to put in a noise ordinance in town, which would have to go to town meeting, you run the risk of, you know, getting really into the weeds and saying, is a weed whacker allowed? Is a leaf blower allowed? Is your snow blower allowed at 4 o'clock in the morning because you need to get out the driveway and go to work? So that's one of the reasons why, you know, the ordinances for zoning, noise and things like that are a little bit gray. And I think that's kind of intentional, because at some point it comes down to a judgment call.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but I guess I would ask, if we said the use would be allowed, but is restricted to certain times of day, certain days of the week, are you saying that that would not be within the authority of the decision?
that's a mechanical issue that I'm not able to answer. And all I know is that Mr. Tenreverdi is appealing my order to cease and desist. And I think, for better or worse, that's what's before the board tonight.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, I'm sorry, Paul?
Sorry, I forgot what I was going to ask.
Okay, well, if it comes back to you. All right, Ms. Cotillo, one more time. You can be unmuted. There you go, thank you.
Hi, this is Dave Cotillo this time.
Okay.
So I just want to say, you know, the Stricklands have been neighbors of ours for a long time, and Dan does do repairs on his truck once in a while. But the difference between what Salim does and Dan does, Dan's very reasonable. He's respectful. We've never had any words about any projects that he's done over there because he is respectful. What Salim is doing is crossing the line, and that's why we've had to bring this up. So I just wanted to point out, we're not looking to shut down our neighbors from doing their projects. I run my lawnmower, my weed whacker. I think all those things are reasonable things to do in your yard. But when there's grinding and spray painting and all sorts of banging and whatnot, you know, it crosses the line as to what's reasonable in this neighborhood in Northborough. I mean, Northborough is a very nice community. We've lived here for 27 years. We've taken pride in our house. We've spent a lot of money on our house, improving it, and we're paying a lot of taxes in this town. And we would just hope that before you make the decision, you could look at those videos and the pictures again. We're not saying it's happening 24/7, but when it happens for a long period of time, for a week at a time. So I'd like you to look at those videos before you make your decision, and picture yourself on a Sunday morning trying to read your newspaper and drinking your coffee when that kind of activity is going on next door. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, if there are no other questions or concerns by the board or staff, Paul?
Can I ask, yep, just sorry, one final question for the applicant. So what you're appealing today, right, is to allow you to essentially run an auto repair and an auto body shop, right?
No, actually, I didn't have any say over what goes into that zoning interpretation request form that was written by Mr. Frederico. I'm appealing that I don't have a fire hazard, risk to groundwater, unregistered vehicles, not running a business, not running an auto shop, and that I'm not making noxious noise. The original enforcement order was dated August 5th. It was rescinded August 18th. I didn't do anything in between those dates. Then I did a project on September 6th, on that weekend, September 6th, when I had to call the police. And then since it was reinstated September 14th, I didn't do anything until 10:23, where I wasn't even making any noise, but the Cotillos called the police anyway. And then since then, there's been no other complaints. So we're talking like of a 6-month-ish period, there were like a handful of days where complaints could have been made about anything. And one of them, I wasn't even using any tools when the police showed up. So like I've tried, and like I did not completely stop doing any vehicle stuff forever, but like I've definitely made an effort. And I actually, at the beginning of all this, like the Cotillos reached out, they were like, you know, you got to stop doing all this car stuff. And for a long time, I've like tried to accommodate. This time I responded, I was like, look, I want to be able to enjoy my house too. I'm trying not to make unconscionable amounts of noise and bother you. And I said, like, I'm trying. So they told us they had contacted town. I called Mr. Frederico proactively and I was like, hey, like I've read the bylaws like every year. Like, can you tell me like what I'm doing wrong? And he kind of just said, you'll get a letter, and hung up the phone. And that's what I received on August 5th. So like I am trying, and there's been months with no complaints. And I did go home and I did do work on my car and there were no complaints.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
So-
any other, Paul?
Sorry. So have you, since your September 14th letter, tried to satisfy any of Bob's requirements?
Let me see what. So I think in his letter he said, I mean, yeah, I've definitely tried not to make a lot of noise. I rebuilt the whole front end of my car the other weekend. I didn't make a bunch of noise. No one had to call the police. No one was disturbed. Like, I've also limited what I'm doing a lot, like to the point where I came back October 23rd. In November, since November, I've been in Vermont. Like, I haven't been doing anything for months.
Correct.
I think a lot of the problem is there wasn't anything in the first place in terms of unregistered vehicles in any of the complaints. I think you have a case for noise in like the small amounts of time that there is noise. And I think you have a case where it's like not the most pleasant thing, but I do clean it up. Like, it's unfair to take pictures 1 or 2 days out of the year and say it's like this all the time when all the other neighbors are saying, no, I don't really have a big issue with it. And I get you're adjacent to me. Like, of course you're going to have the most complaint. But like, I'm trying. I have been trying. I've spent thousands of dollars. My dad made a good point. I did have to replace the transmission on 2 of my cars, the one my dad daily drives and the one I daily drive. And I did pay StarTech Auto, which is Abe Cody's shop, $500 and $580 to do those this year. I totally forgot about that.
Thank you. Okay. If there are no other questions from the board members, do I hear a motion or consideration?
I move that we close the hearing.
All right, that's
Second.
Mark. Okay. On a roll call vote to close the hearing, Mark Rattan,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Dick,
Aye.
and Fran, aye. Okay, the hearing is closed. We will come to a decision this evening after the other hearings. If anyone wants to contact the town planner's office tomorrow to find out what the decision was. Okay, so
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, all right. Okay, the next on the agenda is to consider the petition of Rodney Haddad for a variance special permit with site plan approval, special permit groundwater overlay district for a rear yard setback for the construction of a 38 by 30 single-story garage on the property located at 11 Thayer Street, map 105, parcel 37 in the residential C zoning district and groundwater overlay district 2. Okay, so is Mr. Haddad, do you want to? Yes. Okay, so is Mr. Haddad in the audience? Let me see. I'm looking to see if there's anyone.
So I did a quick check as well, and I did not see anyone. I know
Okay.
Kathy gave me a phone. Oh, there we go. He just raised his hand.
Somebody raised his hand.
Yep.
Woohoo.
I'll move
Okay.
him over to panelists
Okay.
for you.
All right. There you go. Oh, I might have done the same thing. Okay. Is this Mr. Haddad? If you could unmute. Ask to unmute.
Hi.
There you are. Yes.
I apologize.
No worries. State your name and address, please.
Rod Haddad, 11th Thayer Street, Northborough.
Okay, Mr. Haddad, can you give us a little brief overview of why you're in front of us today for a variance?
Yeah, you know what? They made a mistake. They switched the plan the other way on the garage because I faced the doors east instead of would be going north, and we went over the setback.
Who's they?
The contractors.
Okay. Okay, so how far into the setback are you?
I believe, Bob, we about 6 feet into the setback?
Yeah, you're about 6 feet.
Yeah, roughly. Maybe I think a little bit under, but you know, if you want to call it 6, I guess you can.
Okay, and what is the status of the garage at this point? I know we see oh, there we go. Who's doing that?
Excellent.
Excellent.
I just put that up there.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so
and I have a couple other, actually, this is probably the best.
Okay.
Visual, and you were all sent pictures also.
Right. Okay, so Mr. Haddad, with your permission, Kathy, I think is going to be the only one who can manipulate the picture on us.
That's fine, no problem. Okay. So I believe what actually happened was when we had spun the garage, I think it was just kind of an odd mistake. the back of the garage, if you can see, is like the 20, 25 and the 26.2. So
Okay.
I think they thought in their mind when we spun the plan around, they were thinking that was the rear setback when that's actually the side lot line. And the rear setback became, it just, everything kind of got flipped around.
Okay. And so is it the side setback or the rear setback that is not correct?
It's the rear setback. The rear setback is 25 feet.
Okay.
And the foundation was placed at 19.3 feet. I will state at the beginning, during permitting, before any construction started, the proposed plot plan was accurate and correct, both in terms of groundwater and in terms of placement for setback. It was upon inspection of the foundation before the framing started that we went out and took a look at it based upon what the land surveyor gave us. And we confirmed that it was indeed over the line. And that's when we said, why don't we stop construction? And I discussed with Mr. Haddad a bunch of different scenarios. And I advised him that probably the first place to start is to ask for a variance after the fact.
Okay. You're not interested in moving it over a few feet?
That was discussed.
Okay.
If everybody wants to give me a hand, we can all have a garage raising. That would be great.
That would prove to be quite expensive.
Okay. All right. Do any of the board members have any questions for Mr. Haddad? Do any staff members have any additional questions for the applicant? Okay.
Fran,
yes.
Fran, if I could, I think I'm just looking in our file. I think an abutter, I mean, I know you're not there yet, but I just want to let you know. Yeah, there was an abutter who, and when you get to that point, I'll bring it up, that sent in an email of support.
Right, and I do know that we should have all received it. And Mr. Haddad, is he on your back side, the back abutter or the side abutter?
No, he's actually the rear lot line who would actually impede on, but I believe, and he stated in his email, I want to say Tim is well over 200 feet away. It just kind of abuts his driveway, but there is a lot of spruce trees between him, his driveway and the garage. I apologize, guys. The last thing you probably need to hear tonight is that we didn't do this right. So
no worries.
I am sorry for taking up your time with this. Believe me, I'd rather would have had a garage up by now instead of being here, but.
Okay. All right. Mark, did you have a question?
Yeah, right. No, I was just going to ask, who is the rear abutter?
Okay.
It looks like a lot of land from what I can see. And of course, this is the first time we've ever seen this kind of thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Madam Chair,
yes.
Question. Who is the contractor for this project?
The contractor is Madzos Contracting out of Worcester. I think they're currently permitted to do, I think, at least 2 more projects here in town that are currently underway.
Okay.
And get out there before the concrete cures.
Well, one of their other projects that they are working on is on Thayer Street. They did do the foundation as built before they started framing, and that one was fine.
Excellent. I'm sorry, Brad?
I may have missed it, but I mean, how did they miss this project?
I think it was, my opinion is that it was missed on installation. As I said before, when they went out and did the permitting for this, they gave me a plot plan that showed proper setbacks. And it's up to them to install the foundation according to the setbacks on the proposed plan. To ensure that everything works right, the certified plot plan or the foundation as built, those are kind of interchangeable terms, needs to be submitted and approved before any framing can begin. That is in chapter 1, right up front in the zoning bylaws here in town. So what is generally happening is that they pour the foundation, they call the surveyor, they set the marks and the distances to the lot lines. That sort of certificate gets back to me. I review it, and then I basically allow the framing to start. In this case, I got this plan, and in many cases, the contractor just kind of starts framing. And that is what happened. They got basically 2 walls up, which is not significant to be honest.
Yeah.
Before we discovered that there was a cross line into the setback space.
And just if I could ask the applicant just one question. When I look at the picture, Kathy, if you could just make it a little smaller and go down a little. How is a garage this far away from the driveway without, like, how are you going to get to this garage?
So years ago, there was a garage there prior.
Okay.
So before everything.
Oh, that's fine.
So before everything, the neighborhood was as big as it was. We had a lot of land and we had a large garden. So there's a path that kind of goes from Thayer Street down around. It comes like down to the house and then you just kind of hook a right into the garage. I'm just going to drive over the lawn like we've been doing for 70 years, from my grandparents to my father to what I've done. So it's just kind of, it's worn out. The grass isn't like beat up. It's just, it's just like driving over the lawn easy.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, this is a public hearing. One second. So this is a public hearing. If anyone has any questions or concerns, you can raise your hand. Sorry, I'm just having trouble finding it because of the picture. Okay. One person.
Yeah.
Wow, there is. Oh, okay. I see a Mr. Dorian. I've added you. If you'd state your name and address for us, please.
Yeah, sure. Tim Dorian, 15 Thayer Street.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Rodney, the property abuts me on both sides. I have kind of a pork chop lot that, runs along the side of Rodney's property and then goes back to this 4-acre piece of property. And, I can see how this happened and, 6 feet isn't going to kill anybody, especially me. I mean, I'm the one that's impacted. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of happy of the error because I'd rather have the setback further when you're looking at the map on the left side of 25 feet than where it resides now. As Rodney mentions, there already was a garage there before anyway. So, he's done a lot to the property and fixed it up since his grandmother passed away and stuff. And he's a great neighbor. And, it's unfortunate it happened, but, 6 feet wouldn't change my it wouldn't bother me either way. So and I sent the letter to Kathy to forward you, and just to repeat it, that, I'd like to voice my support for granting the variance, and that it is over 200 feet from my house. So it's just a unique situation. It's not a big deal. So I hope you grant him the variance so he can finish the garage.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Dorian.
Thank you.
Okay. I do not see any other hands raised in the audience. Nope, it's still Mr. Dorian. So,
Madam Chair,
yes.
With no other hands raised, I would like to make a motion to close this hearing.
Okay.
Regarding.
Okay, thank you. That was Brad and Dick seconding. All right, all those in favor, Brad?
Aye.
Dick,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
and Fran, aye. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the third, to consider the petition of Brianna Ritacco for a variance special permit for operation of a kennel at a single-family residence at 8 Mill Street, map 54, parcel 54 in the downtown business zoning district. And I did see Brianna Ritacco, I just brought you in. If you can just unmute yourself, thank you. And then state your name for the record and tell us why you're here this evening.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Awesome, thank you. My name is Brianna Ritacco LeBlanc. I'm here with my husband, Kevin LeBlanc, as well. Small introduction. I am a lifelong resident of Northborough. I have lived on this block my entire 35 years in town, and I've lived in this exact home for 25 years. I've prepared a statement I'd like to read to you. A kennel is defined by the town as an establishment that houses more than 3 dogs for boarding or daycare that are not owned by the owner of the property. I am asking the town to allow for care of up to 7 dogs at my home pet sitting business, with only 3 potentially staying overnight. This number would allow me to operate a successful business while also maintaining a small at-home facility feel, which is truly the cornerstone of my business model. Allowing only 3 dogs is a hardship for me because it's not allowing me to become an official town business by obtaining a business certificate and license, and this is limiting my business growth and earning potential. If allowed more dogs, I could advertise appropriately and ultimately seek the revenue to be successfully financially. Operating the business from my home allows for my expenses to remain low as a child home daycare facility would. Keeping my dog numbers low allows for the same accommodations of a home care facility. All dogs are interviewed for safety purposes and only accepted when it has been proven that they can interact freely in a home environment and not have the need for crates, another reason why keeping the numbers low is extremely important to me. The reason I am highlighting these facts is because the term kennel seems to have a negative connotation associated with it, if it only because it means a large amount of dogs in one location for a specified period of time. I would like everyone to understand that this is not what I am asking for, and this is never the intention of my business request. I never even want to hire an employee and strictly want to think of this as a small family-run home care environment for dogs that are not fit for the typical kennel situation. I understand the term kennel is the legal termination for a facility of this nature. However, it's almost as a third term could be created for this type of business that seems to be growing more and more popular. Many people in today's world think of pets as their children and would like them to be treated no less than such. I have addressed concerns regarding noise, waste, and traffic in my application, but I again wanted to outline them for the members of the community who may be of interest or concern. I currently live less than 200 feet from the doggy den, which under the town's definition is also a kennel. This facility accepts a substantial amount of dogs over 7, and they contribute to area noise on a daily basis. The addition of 7 dogs should not be a negative impact to the area already affected by this noise. I have lived on this block my entire 35 years in Northborough, and I've also spent a substantial time in other areas of this town. By far, we do not have the luxury of living in one of the quiet areas of town. After all, this is the business district. In addition to the doggy den, there is the fire station, Route 20, the train, the laundromat, and multiple other businesses that operate in the direct vicinity that create noise pollution daily. I always obey all noise ordinances in town with my own dogs and never received any type of noise complaint. I do not allow excessive barking in my home, and I deter it from occurring whenever required through a variety of training methods. Although my business hours are by appointment only due to the small setting, I can guarantee outdoor playgroup hours would always be between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. And if a dog needs to be taken out during non-playgroup time, the dog will be taken on an individual basis to create as little disruption as possible. Dog feces are collected using a no-contact picked-up system and disposed of in a designated trash receptacle. When emptied, the waste is then double-bagged and added to our waste for trash collection. I have looked into hiring professional services. However, all the ones in our area actually dispose of waste in the owner's trash as well, so they ultimately are doing the same thing I was doing, and it would be less than sanitary because they only come one time a week. In regards to traffic, as stated before, I live in a highly congested business district, directly adjacent to Route 20. In addition to many businesses around me, residents in my area have previously and currently operate home daycare, art schools, and other facilities that have never affected traffic in my area negatively. My road is directly off of Pierce Street, This is often used as a cut through from Hudson Street to Church Street and to access many businesses. Lastly, I have learned that decreasing property value to be a potential concern for residents. I do not see how this could negatively affect the property value in my area, as I am fully located in the business district of town. Although I was unable to locate any exact studies on the correlation of a kennel in a residential area on property value, the most negative aspect mentioned was noise pollution. Since I would be operating in direct proximity to a business of the same nature, the other noise contributors already mentioned, and I am in fact in a business district and not a residential district, I do not see how this would be a negative effect to the values of the properties around me. Due to my requested business model, my facility will always be by appointment, and I do not intend to post any signage in my yard. I have a beautiful 6-foot vinyl fence surrounding 3 yards of my property, and it's not visible from the street in any manner. The one side that has a 4-foot fence is a work in progress that's going to be completed by a retaining wall and then a vinyl fence continuing along it in the spring. Excuse me. My intention is not to stick out and ruin the area around me. I plan to live in my home and continue to improve it as much as possible for my own my own future resale value. In closing, I think my business would be a great asset to our town. As a lifelong resident, I have a strong connection to Northborough and the families within it. The small local businesses promote local growth and solidarity within a community. Home-based facilities create a more personalized and individual feel for customers. And in a world that's being overridden by large corporations and greed, I feel home-based facilities need more promotion and advocating. In accordance with the Northborough Master Plan, I am an advocate for economic growth within our town while maintaining our small town feel. After all, each dollar spent at an independent business returns 3 times more money to the local economy than one spent at a chain. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taco. Before I open up to the board, can you tell me how many of your own pets, dogs do you have?
I own 2 dogs.
Okay, and so it would be 7 in addition to your 2?
Yeah, my intention would be to say under 10, so that would be a total of 9.
Okay, and would you, do you have the plans in place for the 4-foot retaining wall and the new fencing before your business would expand?
Yes, I would intend to do so.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, members of the board. Paul. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were reaching for your unmute.
Oh, sorry, no, I was pen. I guess, what is the size of your lot?
My outdoor fenced-in area is approximately 6,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Other members of the board? Brad?
Yes, Madam Chair. So do you have any operation going on at this point? And could you give us a little more detail on, and if so, what you're doing?
So I currently am watching no more than 3 dogs a day in accordance with the law. I have been doing pet sitting for some time under this business model. I'm just looking to expand as it has become very popular. I am constantly turning away people. And it's just, I could definitely see a growth opportunity.
Okay, and piggybacking on that, so what you're doing right now, do you have, are you housing any of these dogs overnight?
Occasionally.
And how long is that?
It depends on it's an individual basis. The longest I've had a dog is 6 nights.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, so sorry, I was a little late to this.
Okay.
This is the property. This is 8 Mill Street right here.
Okay, so could you just move it? I mean, I don't know where everybody else's little grid is. Just move it, I'm gonna say towards your left. I don't know. Yeah, I want to see more. Thank you. I don't know if anybody else wants her to. I'd actually want you to make it small, less detail, so I can see more of how far away. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Members of the board.
Yeah, Madam Chair, another question. So if you don't mind. No, Fran's on mute.
Oh,
Do
I
I
was
get the
shushing
okay?
I was shushing my husband. He was like
Oh.
talking, walking up the stairs. I'm sorry.
No. Sorry, I was just trying to jump in. I'm like, oh,
Go-
Madam Chair, is it
yes,
okay?
yes. Go ahead, Fred.
So right now you're working with 3 dogs. They stay overnight on occasion, some up to 6 nights. So you're asking us to go to 9 dogs total. 2 are yours, so 7 are your clients. Do you plan to continue having them overnight? I mean, what are the hours of operation? Like, just can you please give us a little more detail on what you're really asking for besides just asking for a kennel for 9 dogs?
Sure. As I stated in my statement, I wouldn't allow them outside and play group outside of the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Beyond that, I really can't answer the specific question of when they would stay overnight and when they wouldn't, because it's really based on the client that is seeking services. Like if they only need someone to watch their dog for the day, then I only watch it for the day. But if they're going away on a trip, then they would sleep over.
And so, sorry, you said you wouldn't let them out in play groups. What did you mean 8 p.m. to 6 a.m.? So you said 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yeah, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. That'd be the outside time that they could play like together. And
Okay. And would you keep them on your property, or would you walk them up
on
to
my
the
property.
lake?
No, in the
Cold Harbor Brook.
Yeah, probably in the fenced-in area. I wouldn't leave the premises.
I'm sorry, you cut out on that. Or do you intend on walking them on the streets, or are they only going to be off leash in the fenced-in area?
In the fenced-in area.
Okay. So there would be no leash walking.
Correct.
I had a question.
Go ahead, Jeff. No, actually, sorry, Jeff. Can I just,
Go right ahead,
Can I just wrap my thought up? And so, what kind of? I know you were talking about the new fencing. What kind of current fencing do you have in place today?
I have the vinyl fencing on 3 sides. It's just the one side that's not completely finished. It's a 4-foot temporary fencing. It's shorter than the vinyl fencing, so it's see-through one side.
Okay. Thank you. All right, go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
Thanks. My question just had to go with fencing as well, and that is the fencing area that you have for the dogs around your entire property, or is it to the back, the side?
It does not include the front yard or the driveway.
Okay. So on the plan that we see here, it's the side that says 136 and then the side that says 87?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
And I believe it does attach to the side of the house where the .07 is. It goes along there, then across the back and over to the property where it says 87, right? That by the 87 is where the small fence is at the moment.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And it's only partially of that side. It's probably 2/3 of the side. The other third is already got the 6-foot fence on it.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Paul.
I just want to confirm the fencing area is 6,000 square feet. Is that correct?
Yes,
Roughly?
approximately 6,000. It's
Roughly.
probably actually a little more than that. That was just a rough measurement.
Okay, thank you.
Mark?
Madam Chair? If dogs stay overnight, where do they stay?
It's actually really dependent on the dog. So far, all the ones I've had stay over have been in my bedroom with me. That's where my dogs sleep, my own dogs.
Okay.
So kind of the cornerstone of my business model is the at-home, away-from-home feeling.
So they're kept inside the house. There's no outdoor shed.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Oh, Leslie, yes.
So when the dogs are outside, are they attended, or is someone out there with them? And when they're outside, outside? Are they always like free ranging in the fenced in area, or do you have any penned in areas or crates or anything like that?
The fenced in area is free range, but I am always supervising 100%.
Thank you.
And a follow-up, Ms. Ritacco, since you have been doing the smaller business where you have had up to 3 dogs overnight and or having play groups in your yard, in your home, have you had any complaints or any neighbors that have voiced any concerns about it?
No, I wasn't made aware of a petition today regarding some of my abutters, but they seem to mostly be from across the Coldbrook Harbor Pond, and I actually don't actually know any of them. But the few that did sign from my street, there were only 3 out of the 11 houses, and they are tenants. They're not actually landowners. So I felt like that was important.
Okay. All right, Kathy, can I ask you to reduce the size of the map so that we can see how far or what the proximity of this project is from the county, Country Candle, and Holbrook Lane?
Yeah, this is a fixed map, so I can't bring in Country Candle over here.
Okay. And what about, and Holbrook, is that?
Holbrook is part of
Country Candle?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I know we normally get an abutters list, like within 300 feet. I don't see one in here. I see a request for one, but I didn't see it actually show up. Right, the request came through that said they asked for a owners within 300 feet of the property, but I see the request, but not the actual list. Now it might just be my set of copies. I'm just a visual person. I'm wondering.
So, Fran, I think if I understand, the people who live on Country Candle Lane and Holbrook are part of the 300-foot abutters list.
Okay, thank you. It's like I said, it's just not in my packet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the 300-foot circle does hit I'm looking at a live GIS map now, and it does hit some of the houses on Holbrook Lane, but does not touch Country Candle.
Okay, cool.
For frame of reference.
All right, thank you so much, Paul. Bob, did you have a question or point?
Yeah, I want to just bring to your attention a couple of things. This whole episode got started based on an anonymous complaint about noise and dogs, and I went and investigated it, and I didn't see any dogs in the neighborhood or the yard, but it did look like the yard was being used for dogs. The complainant also asks me to look on a Facebook page which shows Ms. Ritacco's business being advertised, and she stated, more dogs than what was typically allowed, which is 3 non-owned dogs. So at that point, assuming it's a viable business and it was running, I did issue a cease and desist order. So what is before you tonight is an appeal for my cease and desist order, and also a variance and special permits for the use of a kennel in the DB district, the downtown business district. Furthering that, at the last town meeting in July during the heat wave, the town voted to change slightly the terms of the definition of kennel, which doesn't hold a lot of bearing tonight, but the use tables in the downtown business district do not allow for kennels. It is a no. So if Ms. Ritacco would like to have a kennel business there in excess of 3 non-owned dogs, she would need a variance. In addition to that, she would need a special permit with site plan approval because she is in the groundwater district. Okay, so she's looking at appealing my decision to cease and desist, a use variance, and a use variance as a home occupation for a kennel. Okay, but the overriding arch is that in the DB district, kennels are not allowed according to the charts. There is a history of the ZBA granting use variances, and that would be the route should Ms. Ritacco want to open the business.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I guess just for future, I mean, this is now the second appeal this evening that we don't have the actual paperwork related to it. And I think that that would be helpful. I mean, sometimes on the applications for hearings, we see boxes checked off, and to be honest, I didn't even realize that that was also part of what we were hearing, because that wasn't actually in the agenda. So for the future, if we could get copies of those while at the same time. Okay. With all that being said, are there any additional questions from the board?
I have a question, Madam Chairman.
Yes. Dick.
The fenced-in area that the dogs are going to be in, is it directly accessible from the house? I mean, is there a door from the house going into the fenced-in area without going out and around to the fenced-in area?
Yes, there's actually two. The back sliding door and the outer, I have a walkout basement, so they're both accessible.
Thank you.
In regards to the previous, I just wanted to make a comment regarding the cease and desist order. I did contact Mr. Federico when I received the order, and I explained to him the situation regarding my Facebook page, and it did appear to have more dogs than 3, but I don't think he was taking into consideration the fact that 2 of them were actually mine. So it did look like there were more, and that's mostly why.
Okay. Okay. So you are confirming that you do not currently, nor have you prior to this, had more than 3 dogs that were not yours overnight, or more than 3 dogs actually on the premises at any given time?
That is correct. And
Okay.
I feel the complaint was put in honestly as a personal vendetta from a neighbor. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Sure, Jeff.
Is the doggy den that's just down a couple 100 feet away, is that in the same zoning district, or is that, I hate using the word grandfathered use, but
I believe it is in the same zoning district, and it is a pre-existing non-conforming use. We try to stay away from grandfathering because it's not a real popular term.
note taken. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
One question. Do you have, and I apologize if I missed this, my kids are just running in about 20 minutes ago. Do you have any other employees besides yourself?
No, and I never intend to do so.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any licensing required to run a doggy daycare?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. From what I've determined in other towns, they do offer licenses that are granted either by the town inspector or by the dog officer, but I think it's based on town laws and stuff. I don't think it's actually like a state law.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Madam Chair, I have another question. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
Good, Leslie. No, Leslie, go ahead.
I apologize if I missed this. Are the dogs dropped off at a specific time? Do you pick them up? What's the, I guess, how do the dogs arrive and leave?
It's a mixture of both depending on the need of the individual. I do offer pickups and drop-offs.
Just try to get a sense, I guess, of, is there like a, line of cars bringing the, there would,
Yeah, no, that typically, no, it would be different times throughout the day. And just because I'm asking for a maximum of 7 doesn't mean they'll always be 7 on the premises. I mean, there could be days where I just don't have any, or
We need to go with the assumption that you'll be at full capacity, because that's why you're here before us, is to
okay, sorry.
to maximize your capacity. And I would imagine that they would be pretty much on the outer limits of the time, since people are presumably bringing them to you so they can work.
Correct.
But you're saying that they would not have the free range of the yard other than between the hours of 8 and 6 a.m. I'm sorry, 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. So
Correct.
you'd bring them inside your home while they waited for their mother or father to pick them up.
Yes.
Okay. And if you had to had to go pick up animals, they would stay inside your home unsupervised, but not in the yard unsupervised.
I typically arrange my schedule so that animals are never unsupervised, either in my home or in the yard. I only do pickups and drop-offs when I am able to do so.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. All right. Dick? Oh, okay. Paul, did you have a question? I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. What is the groundwater? Can you confirm what? Is it 2 and 3? Oh, it's 2 and 3. 2 and 3. So I assume it crosses in between the property.
It's 2 and 3, primarily groundwater 2.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll circle back around if need be, but this is a public hearing. So if anyone any of the attendees would like to speak in favor or against and or have questions or comments, I would ask that you raise your hand. If you're on the phone, I'm going to ask Jim to chime in again. It's *6 or *9.
Absolutely. So you did have 2 comments in the Q&A, and I had asked them to raise their hand during the public comment period.
Okay.
So at the bottom of the Zoom application, there's a raise your hand feature. Please use that to be recognized. And then if you're calling in by mobile phone, dialing *9 will raise your hand. And once you are recognized, dialing *6 will unmute your phone.
There you go. Thank you again so much, Jim. Okay, so I see I'm going to allow to speak Mark DeMagi. I apologize. If you could state your name and your address, please.
Hi, this is Kathleen Zanaboni. I'm calling from 20 Holbrook Lane.
Okay, one second, Kathleen, because that's not what's on the.
I know. I'm
so I
calling
just want to
from,
say,
he lives here too. Mark
no,
Domay lives here.
that's
at 20
fine. I
Holbrook.
just wanted to make sure. Kathleen, and I'm sorry, your last name again?
You need to hear.
No, just your last name again. I'm sorry.
Can you hear us?
We can hear you.
Can you still hear us?
Yes, we can. We can hear you and a dog.
Fran, can you get their address again too, please?
Yep, that's okay. So Kathleen and Mark, we need
Hello?
you. Hi, Kathleen and Mark. I need your address again, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mark lives at 20 Holbrook Lane, according to the petition.
Yes.
Okay.
Say hello.
Hi, it's Mark Domay.
Okay.
So I'm the one that went around with the petition. I don't know how to do this so my voice doesn't echo.
I can't help you with that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Cut this off.
Either mute your phone or mute
Okay,
your
I think,
computer.
can you hear me?
Oh,
I
that's
can.
better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
So I went around with a petition. I don't know anybody on Mill Street. I just saw the notice that came to my house.
Mhm.
I am concerned for a few reasons. I did leave a neighborhood that had a dog a house away, which was one single dog that would be allowed to be outside barking. I found it really disturbing, and it was hard to be outside, and it would wake us. And on weekends, I understand she's not allowing the dogs, earlier, but when you have dogs sleeping over, dogs need to go out at all different times. I did go on her street, and what I found was that I had 5 signatures from her neighbors, and every single one of them did not want it to go in. For various reasons. And I just want to say that I would hope that all our signatures would speak for themselves. We're all concerned about the value of our houses going down. I didn't choose to buy my house knowing that there would be dog daycare. I enjoy sitting outside all the time on good weather, and I did notice the dogs barking this past summer or into fall. I was not the anonymous caller, but I was very tempted to call because it was disturbing. So I don't feel comfortable knowing that she has 9 dogs, says that there's going to be not a noise problem.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Am I able to respond, or is that?
No, you'll get a chance in a moment.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
No worries. I thought somebody had their hand up a second ago, but oh, there it is. Okay, Miss Frazier, if you can state your full name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Paris Fraser. I live
Apologize.
2 Holbrook Lane, and I just share the same concerns about the noise, especially concerned during the day of having 9 dogs outside for I'm not sure how many hours during the day, but I think the noise will definitely be an issue. So that's my biggest concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so there is a person on a phone line. The last 3 digits are 002. If you had wanted to speak. There you go. Name and address, please.
Hey, my name is Babu. I live in 21 Holbrook Lane.
Okay.
So it's the same concerns. So if it is 10 dogs, it will be disruptive and day and night, very noisy. And when summer comes up, if we have to sit outside, and there is dogs in the neighborhood as well. And if there are more dogs around the, kennel, we continuously keep them barking with each other, right? So we want to, have a peaceful, silent environment, but not like 10 dogs nearby.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Paul.
I just want to reference the questions in the Q&A. So there was a question from Paris Fraser, who I believe just spoke, and then also one from Kathleen, who asked how will she watch dogs outside while dogs are free inside, just so that
Right,
we
but
capture it.
yeah, I do want to know if that's the same Kathleen. So, I mean, for the record, I'm not sure whether that's fine for public comment. I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
all right, we'll make sure the
Whatever.
questions get asked. Absolutely.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
if I may, I do
Yes.
know that the Q&A, I believe it's supposed to be disabled.
Okay.
I've spoken to David about that because there is an issue with the Q&A questions. So I have been asking everyone to please post their questions in the form of raising your hand. So I believe all questions need to be reflected in the public record because I don't believe we're using the Q&A, but I will check with David after the meeting as well about that.
All right. Well, thank you for keeping an eye on that then, Jim. Okay, and thank you, Paul, for bringing that up. So if anyone did actually type something in, if they wanted it to be part of the record and part of the decision process, I will have to ask you to speak. And so I do see that there is a Christine. Okay, I just cut off your last name. I'm sorry, Christine, I did just add you. If you could give your full name and address.
Oh,
there you go. Christine?
hello.
Hi, is this Christine Moscatelli?
Can you hear me?
We can. We can hear you. Yes, Miss Moscatelli, we can hear you.
I can't hear them.
You're on.
Hi, I'm Christine Muscatelli. I live on 23 Pierce Street. And I'm
Okay,
calling in favor
okay,
of, in Brianna's favor.
okay,
I have a dog, and my dog is a barker, and I live in the backyard on 23 Pierce Street. I think a lot of the noise that they are hearing on Holbrook Ave is coming from my dog, because I've had a lot of complaints from my dog. Is part pit bull and is quite the barker. I am in full support of the dog business, and the dogs are extremely well behaved that Brianna has been taking care of. So I am very, I support the business. Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, so I'm sorry, Ritacco, I'm bringing you back in if you wanted to address any of the concerns that you just heard, and then if there are follow-up questions from the board.
Sure, thank you. So I do appreciate Christine calling in, and I did want to mention that she is in fact correct. When her dog is outside, he is one of the many noise contributors in the area. And I feel like that may be the case that the woman across on Holbrook Lane, I'm sorry, I forget your name, may have been hearing, in addition to another dog on my street who makes a substantial amount of noise. I personally own 2 dogs and have never had a complaint about them. I do a lot of effort to deter barking in my home setting. I do not want them barking because I don't want them going home thinking that that's okay. I'm trying to teach them the appropriate way to act in a home scenario. Things like sit, stay, quiet, go to your place are very common words used in this household. And stopping the dog from barking in any way, if necessary, is always an important factor for me. I bring them inside if they start getting too loud and rough. I make nap time if it's getting too excited and crazy. I do a lot to deter noise. So, and in addition to that, I am only maybe 150 feet away from the doggy den that has an upwards of 30 dogs a day who make a substantial amount of noise that they also might be confusing with my household. And then I saw a question in the chat regards to the hours during the day, which I did answer already, but it was from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then someone asked if I need to take dogs outside during the not free outdoor period. How would I watch them inside and outside at the same time? The answer to that is outside of the time of 8 to 6, my husband is home and lives in the household with me. He could assist in watching dogs on the inside or take one outside if necessary. So although he is not an official employee of mine, I would like to think of him as a volunteer.
Thank you. So, and just to clarify, the 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. is for the outside activity. What are the hours that you would operate the day program?
That would be the same hours.
Okay.
I just, and if necessary, we're not going to be outside the entire time. There's break periods, there's meal periods. That's just the time that playtime would be allowed.
Okay, so the day care would operate between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. And is it 7 days a week or weekdays?
7 days a week, yeah.
Okay, 7 days a week. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go back into the audience, and I believe there is a person named Futon Bosch, and you need to unmute yourself and tell us your address, please.
Yes, hi, my name is Fitron Bash, and my address is 10 Mill Street. I'm the owner of 10 Mill Street, but we have a tenant right now in there. And so we purchased the house in March last year, and then we leased it. The thing is, we didn't know business going on over there. I mean, we're not trying here to stop anyone's business, but when it comes to dog care, I mean, it's kind of very annoying, and especially during COVID and everyone working at home, it's going to be very disturbing. I stopped by the property many times because I live very close by, just to make sure my tenant is, if she needs anything or like that. And I saw the dogs many times. Even if she has her own dog. I mean, I stopped 2 times and I saw 4 dogs. I'm not sure if she started the business, it doesn't matter, but it's, there's a lot of barking going on. If she has, I don't know if she has 2 or 3, and I know she share the land with her, a part of a member of the family. I think she share the right house is her mom or her sister, and they also has dog, which is fine, but I mean, this is already for dogs, and if she's gonna do a business of 7 dogs, and this is a kind of long hours, 7 days, 8 to 6 p.m., and everyone now working from home, so it's kind of disturbing to everyone in the neighborhood, and one of them is my tenant, and I'm making also, I'm not trying to stop anyone's business, and I know she's trying to make a living out of that. I also making a living by renting this house. But I mean, if we know that, we wouldn't purchase it over there. I mean, if it's a daycare, like it's not annoying over there, we wouldn't mind, but I mean, it's kind of too many dogs. And she said she's gonna supervise it by herself, and she doesn't have any assistant. How you're gonna manage 10 dogs? I mean, if you have 1 or 2, my neighbors have 2 and he cannot control them. I mean, if she's gonna have 10, if 3 dogs help, how she's gonna manage the other 7 dogs by herself? That's another concern. That's all for now, yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I see somebody who's on, it says Country Candle. You'll need to unmute yourself and give your actual name and address, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Rishi Desai. I live in 13 Country Candle Lane, Northborough. And I just wanted to say that even though our street, Country Candle, falls outside the perimeter that was earlier discussed, I want to say that the houses on the Country Candle sort of shift inside, which brings us close to that Mill Street area. And I just want to say the same thing that, you know, when we bought this house, we were, you know, we wanted to look for a very peaceful community. There are a lot of owners in our community that have dogs. And I feel that with the kennel being so close to us, as the dogs bark, they follow the trend, right? And then, you know, one starts and then other starts. And then, you know, we don't want that to be a pattern to happen and disturb us, especially during this kind of a time. And then the 2 concerns I had was with respect to the size of the, you know, handling 10 dogs without any help. You know, as the previous person said, like, you know, I feel that that could be a complication. And then the second thing was about just putting a notice to, like, you know, I feel like with 10 dogs, I see a lot of people walking on the Pier Street area. I think that there should be some warning of some sort. But, you know, I just want to make sure that, you know, I present my opposition to that.
Thank you very much. Okay, members of the board. Okay.
I actually have a question, Fran.
Sure.
Regarding the cease and desist order that Bob has in place, does that limit what the applicant can do altogether, or just from over the minimal limits that are allowed?
The cease and desist order was written based upon seeing on Facebook that she's advertising for an active business as a kennel in that area, which is not allowed. That is the current cease and desist. So again, what the board has in front tonight is she's appealing the cease and desist order, and she's also asking for variances and special permits to operate that business in that area.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Ritacco, I'm sorry, if you had anything else you wanted to add?
Hi, yes, thank you. I did just want to address the concern about dogs walking on Pierce Street. Since the 6-foot fence would be entirely around the property where the dogs will be, there is no, it's a vinyl fence, it's not see-through, so, they won't be able to see Pierce Street. So that shouldn't be a concern. It also limits all view of the road. So anybody walking down Mill Street, so will not either be able to see into the yard as well. I forget Fatoon's concerns, I'm sorry, except regarding noise, I feel like I've addressed noise. I think she had something else.
Okay. Bob, can I ask a question on our
Yes.
definition for kennel? It's a
Mhm.
facility for breeding, sale, and boarding or training. Is boarding considered just for overnight, or is that daycare as well?
I think the definition talks about daycare.
Because I know that I feel like it changed at last
Yeah.
town meeting, so I don't know that I have. I mean, I'm reading my blue zoning book, and
Yep.
it doesn't say anything about daycare. It just says facility for breeding, sale, boarding, or training of more than 3 dogs or other domestic non-farm animals.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
that is,
definition,
that's the old definition.
Okay.
You want me to read the whole new one? It's
If you
significantly
would.
longer.
No,
Okay.
I mean, no, that's fine. I just, so it does include daycare as part of the definition.
Yes, it
Okay.
includes boarding, holding, daycare, overnight stays,
Okay.
or training of animals
Okay, that's fine. I know that it was just recently changed. I
at
thought
the
so.
last town
Okay.
meeting, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. All right.
Bob,
Okay.
that clarify, that's over 3.
Over 3.
Right.
So 3 and
Over-
under, they can,
Right. Over
Daycare.
3 non-owned dogs.
Right.
So
Got
she has 3 of her own, and there's a total of 7. Now she's talking about a kennel that needs a special permit.
gotcha, thank you.
Okay, Kathy?
a couple questions that, and Bob, I don't know if they're more for you or the board or the applicant, but as I'm sitting here tonight, you know, and we advertise for everything, not just for what someone applies for in the event that, you know, something changes at the hearing. But this applicant also, you know, applied for a special permit, and I'm not sure what the special permit is for. So that's a question I have. And then I'm assuming that the variance is that she applied for is for the use, because the use is not allowed in that zoning district. And then she did not apply for a special permit in groundwater, but the property, I believe, is in groundwater. And it didn't, you know, go to the groundwater advisory committee. So, so this is a little unique. I mean, in the past, anytime there's been an appeal application, it's just been the appeal.
Mhm.
So so I'm not really sure, actually. You know what? Go ahead.
I think what she needs beyond the appeal is she wants to run this as a home occupation, a home personal service kennel, which is not allowed in downtown business. Okay, so she needs a use variance for that. The other thing
But
is,
isn't it a kennel, Bob? What, I mean, isn't it? How is it a home?
because she's living there.
Okay.
Yep, Miss Ritacco is living at the property.
So she would need a variance for a home occupation, and she would
Right.
need a variance for a kennel.
No, a variance for home occupation because it's not allowed in DB.
Okay.
And she would need a variance. I made a mistake. She needs a variance for the use of that in a groundwater. Now, she has not gone to the Groundwater Advisory Committee, but she would need a variance for that because a variance, typically, a use is not allowed in the Groundwater Protection Overlay District if it is not allowed in the underlying zoning district. So if it's not allowed in DB, it's not allowed in groundwater 2, in which case another variance would need to be granted from the ZBA for the activity in the groundwater 2 area.
Okay, so an appeal of the building inspector's decision.
Yeah.
And your decision was that this use is not allowed.
Right.
And then, so let's think about that for a second. If the ZBA overturned your decision, does that automatically grant her this use, or she then has to go into the variance for the home occupation and the variance for the use in groundwater?
My opinion is that she needs to go into the variance process.
Okay. Okay.
You know, like you said, this is kind of an unusual situation. The thing is that the appeal of a decision or the appeal of an order stays strictly with the order. It doesn't necessarily, I don't believe it necessarily gives permission to do it. It just removes my order to cease and desist.
Okay.
That may be splitting hairs and I may be talking way off the rails, but that's the way I see it.
So I'm just thinking as the board deliberates here, you know, given that a variance would be needed from the groundwater, you know, just keep in mind that this hasn't been to groundwater yet.
Right.
And I have to question, I mean, I'm looking at the table in downtown, but it's not downtown, it's downtown business.
Yeah, this is DB.
So it's DB.
Mhm. So it was
Oh, right. So
changed.
that's why the home occupation is not, so it's interesting. You're in a business area, so you can't run a business out of your home, but it's still the business district. I mean,
Right.
But yeah, and it is her
yeah.
home.
Right, right. But if she lived in a residential area, she could have a home business.
I find the whole thing
Interesting.
very
That's
confusing,
interesting.
personally.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So, so we do have several things. So the reality is, oh, Fred wants to talk. Good, Fred. Thank you. You have to unmute. There you go.
If you were considering closing the hearing, if you want to discuss the variances and the groundwater, there should also be some kind of a site plan indicating there's adequate parking and there's appropriate facilities, a whole documentation on the trash and drainage if there's additional driveway required. So there's a little more to it if you're going to go that way. I just wanted you to be aware of that before you contemplated closing here.
Right. Well, I think at this moment, my thought process is I think we can, I don't know that we can split them, but I think we can address the appeal in that that was based on an anonymous inquiry that was confirmed by the applicant to the building inspector. If it's to his satisfaction that she is not operating a kennel without the proper permitting process, we can we vote on the appeal, but leave have a continuance on the variance, waiting to hear from groundwater? Is that a reasonable approach to make? And I'll take, I see head nodding, but I would ask since if somebody could say something.
Want the verbal on that?
Okay, well, I'll start with you, Bob, and then I'll see what the board members think.
You know, I don't really have a problem with that. You know, she also states that currently she has less than 3 dogs. I mean, I don't know if we're going to go over and do a inventory count on a daily basis, but if she's having 3 or less dogs that are not owned by her, then it doesn't meet the definition of a kennel. So if you were to grant her appeal and she can keep it below the 4 non-owned dogs, then she's clear to do whatever she wants legally.
Right.
If she intends on expanding the count of dogs, then she has to go through the variance process and meet with the groundwater advisory.
Okay, so maybe we want to split those because I don't know that we should do anything about the variance until the groundwater. Jeff.
That was just my basis earlier of the question of what the cease and desist was, if it stopped her from doing any business whatsoever. That's why I asked that question.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in regards to the appeal, there was the process was someone said that, hey, there's more than 3 dogs here. Bob looked at it and said, I think there is, made an interpretation. She's saying that there's not, which is the basis for the appeal, right? But if we reject the appeal, she can still have 3 dogs or less and operate according to the bylaws, right?
Yep.
But if we approve the appeal, right, then she can operate sort of more than right, because we're saying that, right, because if it's the opposite of what is allowed by the bylaw, I guess
interesting.
my thought is that I would probably aim to wait until we have all the information. If that's, like if the applicant wants to operate a kennel or a dog facility, wherever we want to call it, right, and it's more than 3 dogs and it's 7 dogs or whatever, I think we should probably all do it at one point, as opposed to trying to split hairs. Because if we go in and say, we're just going to listen to the appeal, ultimately, right, it's if you deny it, she goes back to abiding by the bylaws and then applying for the variance in theory.
Either way, right. Either way, it's going to have to go through a variance process, at which time, to your point, we can then just say the appeal is moot if she's going to go through the variance process. Makes sense.
And if she's already saying that she's abided by the current cease and desist, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. True enough. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, makes sense. Okay.
If the end goal is to look at her case based on her variance and stuff like that, I think my personal view would be to.
Okay. All right. So Ms. Ritacco, what it sounds like is that we're going to ask if you would allow us to continue this hearing so that we can get additional information, because the property where you live is within the groundwater district and it does need to be reviewed and recommendations from our groundwater committee so that we understand that that the use that you're proposing to have on that property is within the guidelines of the groundwater advisory.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Let's ask a question.
Absolutely.
I haven't been able to locate anywhere in any of my research if there is a maximum number of dogs that a person is allowed to own in town on their property.
Okay. Bob?
I don't believe so. I think your question might best be answered by the town clerk. I believe they issue dog licenses. I'm not sure.
Yep,
yeah,
they do.
Okay.
I would
just like, sorry, go ahead.
Every town is different. Some have it in their zoning, some have it in the general bylaws. But generally the town clerk would be a pretty fair place to start.
Okay, I'll try to obtain that information, but I would like everyone to keep that in the back of their head when they're weighing this decision. I could potentially own this many dogs on my own anyway. I'm not asking for an abundance as a real facility. And I do want to address the comment regarding someone thinking that it's too many dogs for me to handle. A typical daycare facility has 15 dogs per individual, so I'm actually under this by 6.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you all for your consideration.
Okay, so don't go anywhere because we're going to have to ask about when is our next meeting, Kathy? Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
I was just trying to look up in the code how many dogs.
Okay.
But meeting wise, I'm sorry, your next meeting is February 23rd.
Okay. Is that enough time to have it be heard by the groundwater before the 23rd of February, Fred?
It would be enough time if there was a site plan and the application reflected the requirements of the special permit that the Groundwater Advisory Committee needs to get. So
Okay, all right, so,
that kind of goes back to her.
okay, so, and that's something that Ms. Ritacco can contact your office or Bob's office to work through.
Either way, in
Okay.
the section of the bylaw that talks about groundwater, what's allowed and what's not allowed, there are a list of requirements for special permits and variances
Okay,
at the end of the chapter.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now I would like to entertain a motion from a board member to continue the hearing to a date certain.
And can I just let you know
Oh,
one thing before?
Sure.
The town clerk just contacted me, and there is no limit to how many dogs a person can own.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, thank you, Kathy. Okay.
Madam Chair, I make a
Yes, Paul.
motion to continue the petition of Brianna Ritacco for variance special permit for the operation of a kennel at a single-family residence at 8 Mill Street to February 23rd at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brad. And a roll call, Paul,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Dick,
Aye.
and Fran, aye. Okay, Mr. Taco, it's continued to our February 23rd meeting. I would encourage you to reach out to either the building inspector or the town engineer to find out what the next steps are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that is the extent of our hearings for this evening. So, one second. All right, so we are back to 34 Hamilton Road. So, and this is an appeal of a cease and desist, most recently by the building inspector on I think at this point, just the prohibited use of noxious noise and other objectionable features. I believe it was determined that it is not a business being run. So what are people's thoughts, concerns, questions?
If
Yeah, I
may.
mean,
Mark?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Oh, good, Brad.
Go ahead, Brad. Go ahead,
Oh,
Brad.
sorry. Yeah, so I mean, what our zoning enforcement officer, the section that he was going by was 7-05-010. I completely agree with Bob here.
What section, Brad? I'm
It
sorry.
was, and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, 7-05-010, section G.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So it wasn't the fact that is he running an auto body shop or not, or is this a car dealership or not. It was strictly on this section. And I completely agree with our zoning enforcement officer. One car, that's a hobby. 3 or 4 cars, I think, is excessive. And to think that any neighbor, I mean, no neighbor, I mean, you can't pick your neighbors, but working on 4 different cars at once, and we've at least I've seen the images, I think is excessive. So I agree with our zoning enforcement officer on the cease and desist.
Thank you. Mark, you had,
Yep.
did you want to go?
Okay, I guess I take the opposite view, in that one, the appealer has done quite a bit to clean up the property over the course of the term, and it seems that he's been trying to get into conformance with what Bob has been asking for. And I think we're down to the, at worst case, we're down to the short strokes as far as what's going wrong on this property. And I think we have 3 running in use, daily use cars and 1 project car on this property. And I think he is allowed a single project car, which he has registered and which is mostly drivable. And I think he's looking for guidance, and my feeling is to lift the restrictions on him with a caution that he should keep his noise production between reasonable hours, not let anything go into the night, not start anything too early in the day. And the neighbor is free to complain in the future. Bob is very free to come back and implement another restriction on him if he can't keep it reasonable.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Paul, were you going to?
I guess for this one, it's a tough situation for me to sort of square here, because I completely, I read the applicant's emails and I understand what he's trying to do. And, I think that he should be allowed to fix cars that he is going to be using. And if he has a hobby and he's using it, very infrequently, then he should be allowed to do that. Was there historical stuff 2 years ago, last year, that caused Bob to go out to the property and order a cease and desist last year?
This past summer.
Yes.
This past summer.
Yeah.
Right. So last, or whatever. Yeah. A couple months ago, right? And so I think ultimately it sounds, I read the applicant's letters and it just sounds like he's trying to show that he is meeting all of those standards that Bob had set forth. And that, if we deny the appeal, right, we're basically saying you need to abide by the standards that are set forth in the bylaws. And if we reject Bob's appeal, or reject the applicant's appeal, or Bob's ruling, right, I am unclear of what that allows him to do, right? Because, and maybe it's just, I'm not, but if he's appealing the auto repair and auto body shop, right? Does the rejection then say, well, then, yeah, maybe you can have 6 cars or 7 cars, because even though he said he didn't want to, right? Mm-hmm. Does that allow him in us rejecting that appeal? Right. And so that's, I guess, that's what I'm just unsure about.
Well, I think the problem is the actual cease and desist letter says in it that he's making noise, that the piece of the bylaw that Brad read, the prohibited usage G2, was in the letter from Bob back in, whether it was September of last year or the one prior to that. It's not, and that it goes back to what I said earlier. We have an application for a hearing that references an appeal, but we don't actually have a copy of that appeal. We don't have a copy of the actual cease and desist letter. We just have the original interpretation request. So you're right. I think that we've established it's not a business, but there is still part of the cease and desist was stop making noxious noise or having other objectionable features. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we say, it's not just, is he allowed to work on his cars? Because I think our bylaws allow people to work on their cars and mm-hmm. do hobbies and whatever. Mm-hmm. Obviously there's a gray area level mm-hmm. of what they can do. Mm-hmm. But I guess ultimately, in my estimation, I would like him to work towards abiding by the bylaws, right? Mm-hmm. And rejecting the appeal, in essence, going against what Bob determined, mm-hmm. would allow sort of the expansion of what he can do at that property.
But I think that if we uphold Bob's decision, he can't do anything because Bob has established it as being noxious in its noise and objectionable in its features. Because
It's not
that's,
that it's not that he couldn't do anything. I mean, he could remedy the situation. Bob goes out and says, you had 6 cars and now only have 4, but they're all registered, right? He could remedy the situation, which is he did obviously once before. Is that right?
right, I think it's now to us to make that decision. I don't know. I mean, whether other, I mean, I don't have a position on either side of it. I'm now slightly confused as to whether or not, what does happen if we overturn Bob's cease and desist. Does that mean he's free to do anything? I don't think so. But if we uphold the cease and desist, is he unable to do anything? Jeff?
I was just, my feeling, because I'm kind of splitting a little bit in between Brad and Mark, and probably along with Paul, but the cease and desist was put in, he pulled right back. Then Bob lifted it and he went charging forward again. And to me, it sets in line that what he had been doing was too much. But just like with the Kennel case, there's a minimum that's allowed, which is reasonable, working on your car, working on some stuff. But then there's unreasonable, and that is always going to be a judgment call. And Bob, I think, is in the position that he's better able to be able to go there and look on a regular basis. And I would be in favor of leaving that in place, recognizing that he has already resolved some of those other harder issues that we now know are not a factor.
Okay. So leaving the cease and desist will mean that Bob can go out there and say, okay, it appears that there is, he can only see the objectionable features. You can't hear the noise unless you happen to be driving down the street while he's working on the car. So and if Bob thinks it is reasonable, he can lift the cease and desist. If he thinks that it is not reasonable, he leaves it in place until it becomes reasonable. And yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Oh, you're muted, Jeff. Sorry.
In the last 4 or 5 months, he's made it clear that he's been working on his vehicles, but he's kept the sound down, and there haven't been complaints. So in my mind, that means that Bob's order has been working. He's still been able to work on his hobby. He's still been able to work on his family cars, and he hasn't risen to a level that has caused more complaints.
Right.
It's a little simplified thinking, but it seems to have been working since October.
Right. Well, because he did say that he wants to abide by the rules, right? So he's not looking to intentionally agitate the situation. So.
Right. And I guess the one thing that the applicant said was, his neighbors kept calling, and that's like, it's unfortunate that the situation has gone to that far. But there's nothing, like, you can't stop your neighbor from calling the police for whatever reason. I mean, as unfortunate as that may be, but I think the goal would be to try to get to, to satisfy the requests that are in Bob's appeal. And so, I think in that, I'm probably leaning towards I guess I would be rejecting his appeal and upholding what Bob had initially put in his cease and desist order.
Okay. Kathy?
Fran, thank you. I know I'm not part of the deliberation, but I just want to clarify, the cease and desist was to stop working on cars at that address? Is that, Bob, is that what the cease and desist? Yeah.
I wish I had it with me. That's one of the problems about being at home. I can't access my files. I don't believe it was to stop working on cars. I think it was the noise in the visual, and the odors and things like that were complained to me. As I said before, the issue of selling the cars as a business or having more than one unregistered vehicle, that was fairly settled by the police department, and I'm okay with that. So I think at the end of the day, the cease and desist it revolves around the noise and the sound, and the visual, and general keeping with the neighborhood.
So he is appealing that that he is creating noise and a disturbance to the neighborhood.
Essentially, yes.
I guess I'm a little concerned about the essentially yes, because in the packet we have, the last section, which is the appendix, I believe the applicant has written in red exactly what the enforcement is. And then he rebuts it. Now, some of it is very clear. The enforcement said that there were cars with no plates on them. That was resolved according to the satisfaction of the police. Then the enforcement said that there was a groundwater overlay district, prohibited uses, and he addressed that. So I guess
Well, I don't have the cease and desist.
Right. I don't want him
As-
to not to be able to work on his cars. I want him to do it in a reasonable, responsible, courteous way. But I don't know if upholding the cease and desist will allow that. And I don't know if we say that he's right in his appeal, that it's not carte blanche. But
Madam Chairman?
yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I agree with Mark. It's private property. He has a right to his hobby and to do what he wants, but that's reasonable. And I don't see that this is totally unreasonable. And, since the issue has been addressed with the police and the building inspector, the applicant has made a substantial headway in alleviating the problem. And once this problem starts with two neighbors that don't get along, it just keeps going and festering. And, they get the police, the building inspector. I mean, I can understand their probably objections to the noise, but he could have some other habit that he could be flying a drone plane, or he could be using a chainsaw or a saber saw or something, and making a lot of noise that, wouldn't be objectionable to anybody, but it's his property. And as long as he tries to keep it reasonable, do what he has to do and get done, I think it's okay.
And I don't necessarily agree or disagree. I'm a little concerned that we make a decision that could have consequences that are unintended, whether it's for or against. I mean, I had neighbors who thought that the music that they were blasting out of their windows was pleasant, and I can assure you I did not, but there was nothing I could do about it because, so, but again, I don't know what the consequences of our actions would be, either for or against. And so I hesitate coming to a conclusion. I also think it's a slippery slope. Oh, I'm doing terrible tonight on what objectionable features are, because some people have lawn sculptures that I don't necessarily think are pleasing, but I mean, again, that's an extreme. It's not the same again, and I don't want to make light of it because it is sometimes very frustrating to not get along with your neighbors. But what are we doing by either saying yes or no? Paul?
Yeah, so I guess, Dick, I completely agree that he should be allowed to work on his hobby, his passion, to be able to, work on his cars and everything else, and do so in a neighborly way where he's not being excessive in everything. I guess my only concern is with the way that the appeal is worded, in which, I assume it's Bob's initial wording on the cease and desist, where he says, you can't have an automotive repair or auto body shop as defined by the thing. Yeah. And then he goes in to say, I'm not running an auto body shop. I'm not selling cars. I'm just fixing my own. So that, to me, and I guess what I was trying to bring up when we were discussing when we had the case initially, was this appeal reads like you're just responding to Bob's cease and desist, and that it just needs to be sort of gone through that. Like he's not, but then if he's appealing Bob's determination that, hey, you're running an auto repair and auto body shop, and we approve it, right?
I don't know.
Does that make it now worse? Because if Bob is saying you are running an auto repair, and he says, well, I'm not really, but I want to appeal that, and we say, okay, we agree with that, that he can do that. I'm not saying he would, but
right. I don't know. Bob's saying that I think you're running a shop, so stop it. He says, I'm not running a shop. So then we say, okay.
Which is why I guess I would lean. Which is why I guess for me I would lean towards agreeing with Bob's cease and desist and saying, hey, you just need to follow the bylaws,
Mhm.
which includes don't running an auto repair and auto body shop within a residential neighborhood,
Mhm.
which I assume that we've, you know, I mean, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I would agree with that sort
Right.
of stance.
I guess, yeah, I guess I have to disagree. I mean, if I'm not running a cement plant in the backyard and I get a cease and desist to stop running a cement plant, overturning that doesn't mean I can run a cement plant. I guess I see this situation as his activities has not been neighborly in the past. He's tried to bring himself down to compliance in a neighborly way. The neighbor is now hypersensitive. I think it's also relevant that no other neighbor in the neighborhood seems to be complaining about this, and that bringing down Bob's cease and desist while also cautioning him to stay on his best behavior still allows Bob to go back there. And I think what the applicant wants is the ability to say, I want to be able to work on stuff without having to, you know, furtively worry about that I'm going to be called in. I mean, he should know that there are hours of operation of you can make noise in the neighborhood. You can also make sure that you do not go over, you know, on Saturday night into Sunday morning, because that's just pretty obnoxious to your neighborhood.
Mhm.
I think he's been disciplined by this, and I think pulling this off allows him. The other thing too is I think he hasn't had much complaint in the past because it's cold and it's dark. No one does a whole lot of auto work now. We really do have to worry of what he's going to do come May, June and July. But I just don't see him being that obnoxious.
Well, I mean, is it possible that so if like to agree, uphold the appeal, and then that negates or that makes the cease and desist order disappear, with the understanding through Bob that the issues at hand were the excessive noise during too many hours that went too late or too long, too often, and cleaning up. And that the next time that Bob does a cease and desist because of objectionable features and noxious noise, and it comes before the zoning board, we may be less tolerant of it.
Oh,
because,
God, yes.
right?
Yes. I guess that would be my understanding, is that if Bob came back and said, yeah, there's a problem, we would be far, far less open to overriding him.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if that's something that the board agrees upon, I'm on board with that. My thinking, on the other hand, is Bob's cease and desist order is working. And forgive me, anyone please jump in. Is the owner of 34 Hamilton, are they still working on cars, but they just toned it down? Or are they not working on cars at all since this?
Well, I went by it today, and there was one
Yeah, me
black,
too. Yeah.
one dark colored Crown Vic that did not look like it could get out of the driveway without a push. And then there
Okay,
was a
yep.
car. There was a car in the driveway, which I assumed somebody was home. I didn't, you know.
Okay. Yeah. So I saw that too.
Mhm.
And I wasn't, I don't know, whether he just put it on stilts or if he was still working on it. But either way, it seems like the cease and desist is working, where he has toned down the usage of tools, noxious noise, vibration, et cetera, just going off our bylaws. So I think it is working. He's still able to work on a car, not just 4 cars. So that's what I say. I'm like, okay, it's working. He's still able to work on cars, but he's toned it down.
Mhm.
And I think if we overturn our zoning enforcement officer's cease and desist, I don't know if it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can just start working on 4 cars again.
Yeah, and that's just it. I think we're all in agreement that we want him to be able to work on his car
Absolutely.
within as courteous and as considerate as he can to his neighbors. And is he not working on them right now because of the cease and desist? Or no, I guess you're right. No, so all right, so Brad, I think that your point is right, and I think this is what Paul's been saying. The cease and desist order says you can't make a lot of noise, and you can't, have stuff thrown all over the yard.
Right.
And so he's not. He's still working on his car, but he's not causing unnecessary or unreasonable noise and keeping it a mess. So keeping the cease and desist in place, maybe for another, until the spring when we can see whether it's the weather that's
Daylight
related to the
savings, yeah.
change or truly that he can be compliant. Because there's no real hardship. He can still work on his car. He just can't. And I'm sorry, I think whatever the thing is to get the lug nuts off is not any worse than leaf blowing for 3 hours.
Right, totally.
Jeff.
I think you need to advise the attendees that there's no further input.
I'm just ignoring them because
all
there's
right.
no further input.
I just figured you could let them know if they haven't been at every prior meeting that we have.
Right. Well, Jim, I thought was taking care of that in the Q&A, so I am going to ignore it.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I guess I wonder if he wishes to grind a new hole in this auto body or spray paint it. If we decide, I assume under the current cease and desist, neither action would be allowed because the spraying would be considered noxious and the grinding would be considered too much noise.
Mm-hmm.
They're both things that I could see doing in small amounts, but under the cease and desist, unlike me doing it in my driveway, he'll run into this situation where it's snapped down and they can, call the police and stop him. It just seems a little unfair.
Yeah, I agree. He could drive the car around the backyard further away from the one-sided neighbor too. Again, I don't know what the right answer is. We have to make some type of decision as far as I know.
If it is excessive, whether it's late at night, early in the morning, the option is to always call the police and say, all right, this is excessive.
Okay. All right.
So this is a tough one.
All right.
They're all tough.
Well, the next one's very easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So, all right. Well, we can try a motion. We can try. It's.
Okay. Yeah.
I know what we're trying to do. I know what we're trying to accomplish. So let's see if we can come to something that would accomplish that.
Oh, I guess.
I guess do we know the answer of if we do approve the appeal, what is he allowed to do?
He still has to live within our bylaws, which say he can't have the automotive, he can't have the business, and he has to not have noxious noise or other objectionable features. He still has to abide by those bylaws.
So approving his appeal of Bob's cease and desist, does that impact any future cease and desist that may occur?
I don't believe so. It hasn't in the past.
No.
There's no
But they would
functional
be,
difference.
right, they would be more targeted. There would not be a cease and desist for an auto body shop or, you know, a business. It would be solely on G2. I would think.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Leslie?
There's no functional difference to him of what he can or can't do, whether we uphold the cease and desist or not, except having it hanging over his head, I guess.
Right.
Well, yeah, I guess, right. If the end result is him abiding by the bylaws, whether we approve it or reject it, then
I think that's why we're having so much trouble. We all want the same thing and we're trying to figure out which side does it come down. I think if we support either way, that, you know, Bob knows, even if we agree to lift the appeal or agree with the appeal, that Bob has our full support to still come down hard. I don't think it makes any difference.
So, okay, can I make a, so then if we approve the appeal, right, we could add conditions, right, to the appeal, correct? Meaning like, if we say, hey, we only want you to use, I'm saying hypothetically,
Yeah.
would we want to maybe include conditions?
See, I asked that and I got the impression that we can't. So we can grant his appeal of the decision and that then removes the cease and desist order. He still has to abide by the bylaws. It's just that that cease and desist is not giving the neighbors something to say, hey, you know, you're violating a cease and desist. The judgment of whether he's making too much noise is going to be left up to Bob as opposed to the police or the somebody in the neighborhood, I guess.
That'll be the case either way, right? I mean, even if it seems like nothing changes either way. So I guess if I understand it correctly, I know I'm not going to be voting, but I guess I would advocate for allowing the appeal and deal with problems, you know, say that we trust that he's really making a good effort. I mean, I think part of it is just a sort of a show of confidence, or someone's trying to do the right thing to kind of reinforce that, or to reward it in some way. I'm a softie, so I would say give him the benefit of the doubt. And as Jeff said, we're still in full support of Bob and the work that he does, and this doesn't in any way reflect poorly on, you know, the decision that he made before. So that's would be my 2 cents for what it's worth as an alternate.
And I think we can say, like Paul asked, I think that we can say we're granting his appeal. However, just be mindful of X, Y, and Z. It's not conditions,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
mean,
least, yeah.
I guess that's, I mean, again, because I do agree that he should be allowed to work on his car, but it's just the unknown. If you tell me we all get to the same point, you know, where he still has to follow the bylaws and he's not allowed to do any of the other stuff, you know, then.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's saying that he can't work on his car. Obviously, that's his given right. But where do we draw the line between number of cars, the hours of operation, for lack of a better term, because he's not running an auto body shop. But I mean, I think that's where we're all trying to. There's a big gray area there.
And I guess if the noise is an issue, I mean, our bylaws, do we have bylaws on noise? Is it like 8 to 6 or 8 to 7? No. So I mean, maybe you know, in order to sort of satisfy the neighbors, we just say, you know, we could potentially say, hey, you know, we're going to approve your appeal, but you can only create excessive noise, or you can only work on your car. I don't even know, like from 8 to 7.
Don't
I don't know. Something
Madam
to
Chair,
try to-
sorry, Madam Chair, don't we have a bylaw? So he's a resident. He doesn't have a company, but don't we have something that says like you can't start at 7? We went through
No,
this.
that's if you can't have paid contractors work, they can't start idling their machines or start making noise before 7 in the morning. But that's
Yeah.
if you have somebody come into your property.
Okay, so that doesn't apply here,
Right.
but
I mean,
okay.
a lot of this comes down to being a good neighbor, right? I mean, there's nothing that says you can't start your leaf blower or mow your lawn before a certain time, and this is, you know, falls in the same category.
That's right.
Being
Because
reasonable.
I guess, I mean, if we, you know, again, going back, if we, whether we reject it or repeal it, we end up in the same area with Bob in a gray area and
Right.
neighbors calling about
Right.
a noise complaint with no sort of like.
Right. But if we
You're unmuted, Kathy.
if we uphold Bob's appeal, then that gives Bob something to say to him. Listen, the cease and desist said you can't make those noises, and so you can't make those noises. What's the recourse after that?
Well, right.
There isn't any. Right. So Bob says it's a cease and desist,
a
and you're making too much noise, so you're violating the cease and desist. So stop making the noise. And he says, okay.
Or he says,
That's
or he
where
says, I'm gonna put a new, I'm gonna slam you with another cease and desist.
Right. I'm sorry,
that's
Kathy.
where I think, again, you know, my 2 cents worth on this, but you know, look, I don't think, and not that anyone is promoting this, but I don't think, you know, calling the police, having to have a neighbor be put in a position to call the police to regulate something is, you know, is not appropriate. It's not fair. It's not fair to either party. But I think if you stay the appeal, then what is in effect is that cease and desist that does, I believe, give Bob more authority to go there when a neighbor or somebody else, you know, it doesn't always have to be the direct abutter. If someone complains, or if Bob drives by there and sees something. But I think if the appeal, and also too, I don't, even though appeals are something that's happening frequently right now, I don't believe that you could put conditions on an appeal. It's either you're approving or, you know, agreeing with the appeal, so that you're then disagreeing with the building inspector, or you're agreeing with the building inspector and not, you know, supporting the appeal. I don't know where in state law that there's the ability to put conditions on that. You know, it's not a special permit, it's not a variance. But I think if and again, this is my opinion right now about if the appeal is overturned. Now, excuse me, if Bob's decision, if the building inspector's decision is overturned, then everyone is back to sort of ground zero. And the neighbors, if something happens again, the neighbors would have to, you know, file a complaint. You know, Bob would have to go out there, determine, you know, what this new complaint is, and then whether he has to issue a cease and desist.
Thank you, Kathy. All right. That helps me.
In which way?
Well, I mean, should I just start proposing that I move that we affirm the appeal and override the building inspector on the property at 34 Hamilton Street?
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, so Mark made a motion, Dick seconded to uphold the appeal.
And override the building inspectors.
Okay, thank you. All right, so a roll call vote. Mark?
Aye.
Okay, aye is to
Override
override the building inspector's decision.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Dick?
Aye.
Paul?
No.
Brad?
Nay.
And Fran, nay.
Okay.
I think
We're done.
I think I'm going to take my chances that Bob's got a little bit more authority.
That is only one more decision to make tonight.
Oh, my goodness.
No, two.
Well, let's,
No,
all right,
one.
so
it
very
two?
quickly,
No,
11
we
Thayer
continued
Street.
Mill Street, I hope.
We have a couple of things we have to do tonight. 11 Thayer Street. Okay, I mean, he was
I
very
move-
apologetic, you know, if you look at the original thing, it does say 30 feet, and then somehow they put it at 19, right? So,
Do it, Mark.
Yeah, I move that we grant the variance for, that's 11 Thayer Street.
okay, and do we have to say the actual numbers of feet within the
And we
setback?
allow a variance to within 6 feet, to within 6 feet of the setback.
Back.
Second,
Any further discussion? Paul?
Sorry, do you want to make it more than 6 feet?
You allow to within 6 feet, it's a 25-foot setback?
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, so it's down to 19 feet, so 6 feet in.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, that was a motion and a second for a roll call. Mark?
Aye.
Dick?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
And Fran, aye. Okay, so we're continuing Mill Street, so we don't need to talk about that at all, right?
That's true.
Okay, all right. We do need to do approval of minutes. Back on January 13th, Kathy sent us the ones from July, somehow between Deb retiring and Michelle taking over. They didn't get to us in a timely fashion, but they have been with us since the 13th. One of them is 15 pages, so I know Debbie didn't do those. I don't think ever had 15
That's
pages
Elaine.
of minutes.
Elaine Rowe, who used to do your minutes.
Okay, so we do, I don't know if people have seen them. Obviously, if any comments have already been made to Kathy, I can entertain motions on them either individually or collectively, but there are 4 sets of minutes that have to be voted on tonight, hopefully. And that's July 1st, July 28th, November 24th, and December 8th.
You said July 1st and July 28th?
Yes, those are the ones that were from, back in the summer.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from July 1st, 2020, July 28th, 2020, November 24th, 2020, and December 8th, 2020.
And that was Paul. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Okay, that was Dick. Okay, roll call. Paul?
Aye.
Dick?
aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
And Fran, aye. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so the next thing I did send you all yesterday, this is on the zoning amendments and our the joint meeting that we had with the planning board a couple weeks ago. I did actually want to put together something, if you all agree, kind of like the planning board does for us, where they give us their thoughts in writing. Even though we're independent boards, we make our decisions independently. I thought it would be a good idea to actually recap what was discussed, because there were no decisions made when we met with them for that hour or so beforehand. They did have further discussion after we left, and they're having more discussion at their meeting on February 2nd, when there is not going to be any additional input from us until or if any one of us as individuals wanted to go to the public hearing and or town meeting. So I wanted to at least recap what I thought I heard, and then say whether or not we did agree with that, or that we had comments on it, because I don't know that it is going to be captured in what they did. So hopefully everybody did get my the thing that I wrote, and I just want to go through them real quick. Some of them are very simple, and so if we can just say that for the accessory dwelling to change, that it would allow by right the accessory dwelling units in all residential areas. I believe we all agree to it, though not everybody verbalized that agreement. So I just want to know tonight, not shaking of the heads, Brad. And I don't think we have to do a roll call, but if people can just either affirm or confirm that they see that as a good change or a positive change in the zoning bylaws.
I'll just say, I think I'm fine with that.
Okay, all right,
Yeah, no objection, Fran. Nope.
okay, all right.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's reasonable.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so
I really don't think it's reasonable, but
you don't? Okay, that's
No.
fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Dick, would you mind elaborating? I'd like to
I
hear
mean, it just
your
opens it up to anybody to put an apartment in their house for an accessory dwelling. I mean, I think that's a big step. I think it should be goes through some board, either the ZBA or the planning board to get input from the neighbors and what they're trying to do. I mean, I don't think just a blank accessory dwelling in every residence is the right thing to do. But
Okay, all right.
just
Fair
my
enough.
opinion.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. On the groundwater, the update for the special permit criteria. Now they're saying it's for clarity. It was not articulated well as far as my understanding, and I've watched the last 3 meetings and then attended the one that and I know that Kerry, what she's proposing, I'm just not sure in my mind, it was getting where it had any purpose, and that has to do with expanding the special permit process when the groundwater overlay district has special permit criteria. So I mean, I can read it out loud, but I assume you guys read what I think they were saying.
I guess my feeling on this is it's kind of overreach. I believe that if you have a special permit with groundwater as opposed to a special permit, that we're dealing with 2 separate problems. One being the groundwater and the other being all the other reasons for a special permit. And to say, oh, they all have to go through every hoop and hurdle, I don't think this is a good idea. I think I get the impression that they're somehow throwing more problems in front of a special permit in the groundwater district than answering the groundwater issues.
Right. I mean, I think even if this is not the intent, what would happen is a use by right would now have to take special permit steps only because it's in the groundwater district, in addition to those requirements that are meant to protect groundwater.
Right.
And what is that? I mean, my question as to whether that's even fair to an applicant who would otherwise be able to put something there that had nothing to do with pedestrian traffic or any of the other special permit criteria. And because it just has to do with the fact that there's groundwater. So, I mean, I'm not in favor of it myself, making this change. And, but I would like to at least say to them, the majority do, the majority don't, or we have, we didn't, not necessarily a formal vote, but, and Jeff and Leslie, I would like you to chime in as well, because these are recommendations, these aren't votes. So your recommendations have, carry weight as well. And if there's not consensus in one way or the other, I'm going to just say we have no recommendation because we don't have consensus. Paul?
I mean, I guess for me, I would just say I probably need to see more information on this particular one. I guess I mean, the way it was phrased was it's a, what you call it, slate, a whittling down of bylaws to make it easier for people. But if they have to satisfy 3 or 4 requests, and now they have to satisfy 9 requests, and they have to go through a completely different process. I mean, maybe that doesn't really make, the unintended consequences may outweigh, but I guess I would need to see more of like what the final thing would be in order to make a proper decision or proper whatever.
Yep. I mean, I'm in the same boat. I don't, I'm not sure what they're trying to get at. And I mean, all I can do is listen to it and then try to ascertain, but I'm not certain. I don't know whether Brad or Dick, if you have any real thoughts about the groundwater, or Jeff or Leslie.
I don't.
Okay. Dick?
I'm not sure what they're trying to accomplish either. I mean,
Okay.
it's been
all right.
confusing all along, and I don't see that it's helpful, doing away with these conditions if we don't know what we're accomplishing.
Okay. All right. That's fine. I think that I can't say that I don't disagree, and they weren't really clear in our brief discussion or yet prior to their decisions that are coming on February 2nd. Okay. So on the duplex special permits, when they do have to have a groundwater special permit right now, the groundwater goes to one board, the special permit for the duplex go to another. They want it to go to the same board, so it goes all at one process, and they want it to be them. Yeah, I have a, yeah.
Whatever.
Okay. All right. So I have a whatever, and I've got my
Well, I
shoulders.
mean-
I've got my shoulders going like I don't. You know, it's like,
Well, this is our annual planning board duplex issue, right?
Yes.
Yes. Right.
Every year we tackle the duplexes,
Right.
but I have no qualms one way or the other.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Hearing none others on the craft breweries. We're going to add a definition to it. At least I know that I voiced a favor for it.
Yep.
We're going to take a real baby step and
Second.
just say that it's a use in industrial only with a special permit and see how it goes. And we're talking about like a Cold Harbor, a Jack's Abbey, not a Medusa because they're in the downtown, Wormtown before it got big. I don't know. How many do you want me to list?
It's a great start. No, I think this is a great start.
I do too. Yeah.
Be Anheuser-Busch.
Oh, maybe, right.
Miller.
There'll have to be
well-
some limitation on the trucks that will be allowed there.
Well, they're not trucks, though. Oh, yeah, right.
Just
Oh,
kidding.
God, no. No, yes. Just disorderly drunks, maybe, but no trucks.
I guess with that one, I'm like 99-1 in favor of this. The only thing I would say is a place like Treehouse, which is an amazing facility, does have some consequences to the town.
Oh, absolutely.
In terms of the traffic, and not just trucks, but cars as well, in addition to groundwater and wastewater. Now, they've dealt with most of it from what I've heard, but,
Right. But
and
you're
I
not
assume
going
that
to. I'm sorry.
I'm just, nothing, that's it. That's my only concern was by right, it's kind of like, I assume that there would be other people that would be overseeing some.
Well, no, it's by special permit. It's a use by special
okay.
permit. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought it was by right.
No, special permit and only in the industrial. I think more of
That's
a
fine.
craft roots down in, is it Milford? That's an industrial. It's much smaller than Treehouse. So, all right. Number 5 is prohibited uses. Okay, so it's two-part. One, they want to, and the language they have, I don't know whether it's going to, that's up to Kathy and town council to decide if language is getting to the point, but they want to actually have a list of things regardless of what the person wants. It cannot apply for a use variance. And their list that they had a variety of things. I don't even know what they are. But really they're going to have one. They want to exclude certain uses from use variances. I don't take issue with that. I don't care whether it's a table or a list. I don't think anybody wants slaughter in town, regardless of where it is. I guess we'd just be mindful of how far onto that list they go, because billboards are there, and we do want those up in Route 9. We do want to allow certain things in our industrial, but I mean, does anybody have any heartburn over whether? Well, the easy part. Any heartburn over whether it's a list or a tape or it's in the table of uses as not allowed? I mean, Bob.
Just a point of clarification in terms of billboards, they're not allowed anywhere in town.
Oh, I thought they were allowed up on Route 9. Oh, okay.
It's,
There you
it's
go.
one of the prohibited signs in the sign bylaws.
Oh, okay. I just think of the little mini golf place. I thought that was, it doesn't matter. That's fine. I mean, there was nothing on that list that I care one way or the other. Kathy?
I want to point this out to the planning board too at the planning board's next meeting on February 2nd. But something that's on the list caught my eye today, and it reads manufacture, use, storage, transport, or treatment, disposal, and/or processing of explosive, toxic, or hazardous materials. And the fact that it talks about use or storage, we have a lot of companies in town today that use hazardous materials in their daily operations.
Mm-hmm.
So by putting something that broad in a prohibited use, I think I don't think that is wise.
What letter was that?
On the list that Amy Paretsky provided, it's letter G.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I understand, sure, in the big picture, we all want to say, well, God, I don't want anything toxic in my town, or I don't want to live next to something that's labeled toxic or hazardous. But yet, I can name, 6-7 companies right now that people don't even know that they're in town, and it's not that they're a secret. It's just that they're going to work every day and doing their thing and employing lots of people and working with hazardous materials.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, we have a groundwater bylaw that deals with companies that have toxic products, whether they store them, use them, temporarily store them, at their site. So I think that one's a little too, it's a big overreach.
Well, and I guess in absence of going through the entire list, what I would like to at least, say to them that whether we agree in theory that we should have, that there can be uses that are not within the reach of a use variance, and whether we care if they're in table or list form. Unless people, I trust Kathy to explain these things. I don't think they want to hear, I don't know whether it's beneficial to hear recommendations on each, A through N. And that's not just because it's getting late.
No, but I'm just saying that just caught my eye today. So I just wanted to voice that, and I'll voice it to the planning board too.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would leave it up to town staff, Kathy, Bob, Fred, etc. Just, what's the easiest way to enforce it? Just to make the most sense of it, reduce the gray area.
Right, and not create too many non-conforming uses in the process.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody, I know that there was, that I think Mark leaned towards use table versus list. If it's,
as long as they're both equally usable, I don't really have a strong objection.
Okay. All right. Okay. On commercial storage facilities, they want to update the use table to prohibit them from Business West. There was a time when we thought Business West is where we would put box stores. We actually did in 2009 say we would not do it on the Business East side. We wanted that to stay more residential, but Business West would be where we would want to put the bigger box stores, because the idea was someday it might connect through Zecco's up to the Northborough crossing. And so that was the original thought process. They're now thinking that that's not what they want to see for development in Business West. So they'd like to remove commercial storage facilities, which, okay. And who wants them in the town, any more of them in the town anyway? Right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. On contractor's yard, this is Amy had fine-tuned through email the redefinition of contractor's yard striking out the old language, putting in the new language. I personally don't see it making any difference. It's still a multifaceted definition that I don't know that et cetera is actually something that you can have in a bylaw. Talk about gray area.
Yeah.
But I understand the intent. I want somebody else to draft it so that the intent is there are no unintended consequences to it, right?
Yeah, my impression is that it really focuses on what's outside, outside storage and
Yep.
what can be seen from the road. And I guess
Right.
That store that sells, etc.
Yeah, right. And yeah, I mean, because we do, I mean, that's how we made, some properties look better. I see that she took out the whole selling, retail and wholesale. So it's not listed at all, which tells me that they could sell or wholesale or retail their materials while they're there, because it doesn't say you can't. So I don't know whether that was an unintended or intended. I don't have an issue with whether they can or can't sell their stuff while they're there.
That's unintended because her intent is, as she's explained it to the planning board, is not to allow retail or wholesale sales. She is requesting that a contractor's yard just be for storage of materials. That someone's business is not actually run out of the contractor's yard, and they can't, they can't sell product.
And again, I don't see that's what this is doing, but
yeah, I would agree, and I wouldn't agree with that. They should have that kind of restriction where someone can't sell their own product.
right, because we have a marble countertop person that right now is in a contractor's yard doing just that.
I was just thinking the 329.
Yeah, I mean, most
I think
people-
that makes total sense.
You have a business, you want to be able to sell your product. I mean,
right. And if you want to sit in a vinyl sided shed with, again, I'll tell you, Cold Harbor is in a contractor's yard underneath Robinson's Music.
I mean, and thinking about, 50 Southwest. I mean, was it Del Greco? Was that the old company? I mean, they were doing their thing, but people could have showed up with their dump trucks and just purchased stuff off that lot, right? I mean, that's a little before my time. Not sorry to date some of the senior members here. But I mean, it wasn't just like, I just show up, just buy a couple, not cords of wood or, just
bricks.
Cords of gravel.
Yeah, cords of gravel. There you go.
Right.
I mean,
right, but you're not going to be able to do now because they're proposing limiting the outside stuff. So you're talking about somebody that I mean, again, does marble countertops, and he's doing all the fabrication in that shed, in the garage piece, and he has a little office in the front. Now, what if they're selling their products online? Storing them there and selling all the products online. How is that an issue? Mm-hmm. If you have a tchotchke business that you have, you're manufacturing them in the back, and you're selling them out front. So, if the intent is to eliminate sales, I don't know that this is doing that, but I wouldn't agree with it.
Absolutely.
All right. Do people feel?
I think sorry, Madam Chair. Our meeting from last week, I think, and I'm not going to put words in Amy Pretsky's mouth, but I think she's trying to clear up the vagueness of contractors' yards. I know Bob had mentioned that, and that was one of her talking points. But at the same time, I agree with that. I think it should be more set in stone. Pardon the pun with masons and landscapers, etc. But the fact that you're limiting folks from just selling their own product on their own property, I have a problem with personally.
I do like the fact that it looks better defined than our current contractor's yard. I don't know what it's going to not allow, but I don't, again, the same thing. So I guess I would like actually everyone to say whether or not I can say the recommendation is that the language seems to, better define the uses of a contractor's yard. However, either there are at least certain members that are opposed to eliminating the opportunity to sell products out of that unit.
I would agree with that whole statement.
Okay. Brad, is that pretty much what you were saying?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, I know that's what I was saying. Leslie, you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I also think you can store things outside and have it look attractive. The idea that it's so restrictive on what you can have outside bothers me.
Okay.
Because I think it can look nice to have pallets of, your products out there, or if it's done in a certain way. So I guess I have an issue with those restrictions as well.
Okay.
Is it saying you can't store stuff outside?
All outside storage and parking of cars shall be screened from view of the street with attractive fences or plantings in perpetuity.
Talk about a gray area.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of like objectionable features. Right. So
Yeah,
anyway,
I agree.
Yeah.
I guess I would say it needs to be fine-tuned for sure.
Yeah. All right. So let them figure out how to fine tune it. But our recommendation would be that sales should be allowed, and that and it is allowing outside. I mean, how they define it, I don't know. All right. Just Dick and Jeff, are you okay with me saying that we agreed? I'm not going to say unanimous or anything like that, but our recommendation as a board is that sales should be allowed, and that this rewording does define it, gives it more definition than the previous one, something in that line.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I mean, this needs to be fine tuned. You got to get rid of et cetera, and
yeah. Okay. All right. Non-conforming, they want to update to clarify the language. So the idea is they want to, actually they've asked town council, and I don't necessarily disagree that, for example, a contractor's yard has carpenters and plumbers. So what they're asking is, if within a contractor's yard, the plumbers moved out and the electricians moved in, then the use has changed and therefore should require a review by the ZBA, either as for non-conforming less detrimental, or a non-conforming less detrimental. And in fairness, Amy did say that she believes she learned that that is what we should be doing. So if that's what we should be doing, it should say so. But I think that town council has to weigh in on that. I think that that's been asked. Kathy, is that true?
No, not yet. It's going to be, but not yet for town council. Okay. But the, I think what everyone, I think the summary maybe on the 19th was that what I heard generally was that at least the planning board was saying that they want to direct this non-conforming process to the ZBA, and that the ZBA determines whether something is non-conforming or not.
Taking it out of the hands of the zoning enforcement officer.
I think that's Bob. Was that your take? I think that's where they were going. Mm-hmm. Was that they wanted to go before a board.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, so I don't know if that's possible or not. And that's one of the questions that I have for town council.
Right. Because if it's within a definition, and again, contractor's yard has multiple facets within its definition, as opposed to, a gas station is a gas station. So, but if you are if you meet the definition of a contractor's yard and you are a tradesman and you leave and a plumber comes in, does that plumber have to go and get zoning board approval for a non-conforming use that is less detrimental. And if town council says we should be doing it, then we should be doing it.
I guess I see that. I guess get worried that we'll have some facilities, they'll be turning over something every 3 months, and we'll be spinning, a dozen of these or something. I guess I believe in the discretion of the building enforcement officer to say whether this is an expanded use or whether it's a greatly differing use that it should be seen by us or it isn't. And when you talk about unintended consequences, I really worry that we're opening ourselves up to a whole lot of really trivial stuff.
Others?
I completely agree with Mark.
As do I.
Okay, Leslie, Brad, or Paul?
Yeah, same thing.
I guess I think that if something is altered or expanded, it should probably go under some sort of review.
Even if it's within the same definition of the previous non-conforming use?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I worry that someone's going to say, oh, he went from 3 trucks to 4 trucks. That's an expanded use. And I just don't want to hear it if he just buys another truck.
Oh, and that would even be outside of the contractor's yard. That would be, yeah. Well, okay, yeah. But in the same token, if a gas station went from 2 pumps to 4 pumps and it's in downtown, I would want Bob to say to them that is a non-conforming use that is expanded and deny it and let them appeal it, right? So it's Bob's job to say to them, no, that's an expansion of a non-conforming use and therefore you can't do it.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess the way I look at this is a non-conforming use is a use that exists or has existed for a long period of time. And due to changes in the bylaws, whatever they may be, and Fran, you touched upon it, 2009, you guys went through a whole review, 2.5 years, spent all this time on it, decided where things should be, what is the most appropriate locations, right? And so if you have a use that is in a place where they're trying to sort of change the location, the only way that you can actually go about initiating some of that change, which is not just like a random guy buys a truck, it's like, hey, this portion of town is master plan, whatever the case is, has gone through the full review process. It just kicks off the change. Say, hey, is this allowable? And then it goes to a board, and they say, he buys another truck, fine, go ahead, buy another truck. Or if it's a gas station that is in a place that doesn't belong, but it's only there because it's been there for 100 years, and he wants to go from 4 to 10, goes in front of a board.
Right, but I guess the reality is it doesn't need to go before the board if you have faith in your zoning enforcement officer to enforce the zoning bylaw that says it is an expanded use that is more detrimental and therefore it's not allowed. And then the appeal of that decision would come to us. We're not the first line of defense, we're the second line of defense of our zoning bylaws.
I think though, Fran, based on the major changes that we made as a town in 2009, I think there needs to be some sort of oversight. And so to Mark's point, you're going from 3 trucks to 4 and you're doing the exact same thing. But if you're all of a sudden you're selling mulch and going to stone, or a gas station goes from gas to heating oil, I think that as a town, we should keep an eye on those sorts of changes.
Right, and that would be the zoning enforcement officer's responsibility.
Okay.
Right, I mean I'm fine with saying, because again it's nearly 10. I'm not exactly sure what they're trying to do here. right? I think that it's important to have oversight. If the town council says that these things they should trigger zoning, an appeal or a variance to us, go for it, right? But if he says that it is not the correct process, the first step is to go to the zoning enforcement officer for his interpretation of the zoning bylaws. And then we as townspeople accept that. It's the applicant that is the one that is most likely to appeal it, not our own planning board or, sometimes it's a neighbor, right? But that's how the process, if you have, good faith in the process, that's how it works. And then we are the place where people go when they say, wait a minute, that zoning enforcement officer's interpretation is not correct based on something else. So I don't know. Maybe I'll just recap the conversation again and just, see what they say on the second. I know they're going to do what they want anyway. I just want to have it on record that we've at least said, made our peace. So I'm happy to say that it's kind of split, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. And before we adjourn, then we won't talk about it, but I'm assuming everybody got the letter from about 329 West Main Street. We won't talk about it, but Kathy has forwarded it on and is in contact with town council. And when we hear what he believes is their town's response to the, I don't know, was it an appeal or a complaint, an answer to the complaint? I'm sure we'll all know. Brad, if you want the job back, just let me know.
No, thank you. I got out at the right time.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Okay. Roll call. Dick?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And Fran, aye. Thank you all very much.
Aye.